Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Before we get started, I'd like to thank you and our presenters for taking the time to participate in the first ever Office of Employer Initiatives virtual conference. We're all experiencing a new era of conference attendance, and while I know it would be great to be face-to-face, possibly even at TWC's annual conference, the ability to have you join us online presents an exciting opportunity to share information with you at a time when communication and strong partnerships are more important than ever. We want to thank you for all that you do to support and build your communities. Texas would not be the economic powerhouse it is without the work you do each and every day. We're proud to be your partner in workforce development, and we want to see that grow. And that's what we're here to do today and tomorrow. This is the first multiple day conference for the Office of Employer Initiatives, and based on the efforts of the entire TWC team and on our outstanding lineup of speakers, I know it will be a success. I hope you'll gain additional knowledge and insight during the conference as you hear about how some of our college, education, economic development, and nonprofit partners have put available TWC program resources to work for their communities. But before we dive in and learn from our panelists, I have the privilege of introducing TWC Chairman Brian Daniel. As many of you know, Governor Abbott appointed Chairman Daniel to the commission in July 2019, and he serves as the representative for the public, promoting and supporting the growth of Texas's world-class employers and talented workforce. So as I was saying, this opportunity to work with you guys and meet with you remotely is unique because I think previously we've had an opportunity to meet in short sessions. The Office of Employer Initiatives has had an opportunity to meet with you in short sessions and talk about individual programs. But we really want to reach out to our partners and have the ability to have an open dialogue about many of the resources that are available to all of our economic development partners, our workforce solutions partners, as well as our community colleges around the state in order to upskill businesses, workers, and help really build local economies, which in turn helps the Texas economy be successful. And you know, we know, as I said earlier, that Texas wouldn't be the economic powerhouse that it is without the work that y'all are doing each day, and we want to be able to help you with that. We want to serve as your resource, and I hope as you participate and listen to our panelists both today and tomorrow that you might learn about some different aspects of the programs, even if you're familiar with some of them, and gain some ideas about how they might be able to work for you and your communities. I think really learning from others and how they have been able to leverage state and local resources. It's a wonderful thing. And we've been very fortunate in the state of Texas to have outstanding leadership who have really supported workforce development throughout the state, because we know that companies are choosing to locate here because of our top-notch workforce, and we only want to see that grow in the future. We know that the pipeline for workers is going to continue to grow, and so it's our job working collaboratively with all of you to figure out the best strategies to do that. And you know, the legislature has entrusted TWC with many of the programs that the state has that do that very thing. So we definitely want to make sure that you are up to speed on that. Obviously, we don't have time. We're not going to have time, even over 2 days, to get into every detail. But as we do talk about each program, if something spurs your interest, I hope that you will reach out to us. And of course, you can always reach us at our email address, which is skills@twc.state.tx.us. So any question you have, we're here to help. Even if it's not necessarily about one of these programs, if you would like to connect with us, we're happy to put you in touch with other resources here within TWC. We really want to be seen as a resource for our partners throughout the state, as well as businesses, employers who are looking to upskill their employees and looking to grow in the state, because that's really what we all want to want to see happen. So Julia, do we have any updates on connections?
Yes, he is. Chairman Daniel is with us now.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Chairman Daniel, we are happy to have you kicking us off today. Sorry, there were some technical difficulties, but we're glad that you can join us.
How about now?
Yes. Yes,
All
we can see you now.
We have overcome all the technical difficulties. Maybe I'm not going to. And I was listening to a great deal of your, trying to carry the day until we could get me online, and I appreciate it very much. Although you gave the bulk of my speech, I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to contribute at this point, but I'm going to give it a try. Let me start off by saying Aaron Ray, who's in the audience, Aaron Ray has the most spectacular, what do you call that, a little icon for when her camera is off on the screen here. Aaron wholeheartedly approved of the double T. Excellent use of that, and I've got to figure out a way to copy that myself. It's as soon as I tuned in this morning, there was that double T facing me, and I think that means it's going to be a pretty good day. We got a lot to cover. I've got a limited amount of time because I know that there's a lot of really solid speakers on the agenda. And the agenda is jam-packed, man. There's some great stuff on here, and I know it's hard to get on and stay on. Stay on all day on a Zoom call. It's just tough. There's so many things going on, and it's kind of like watching TV all day, but I hope you will. And I have a high suspicion that we'll be archiving a lot of this information because I see the recording light is on. And so I hope we'll be able to break up all this wonderful content and keep this available for people throughout the year. It's just so many resources and so many opportunities for us. It's hard sometimes to digest it all, but I think there's some great things going on out there and some real opportunities for us to put some things to work. Man, we're almost to the end of the year, and if we really stop and reflect on 2020, there's so many things we could say about it. The word I've been using most regularly, most often is just disruptive. 2020, for a whole lot of reasons. The obvious reasons and some less obvious reasons was just a really disruptive year. And I think that, like most disruptions, it just creates change. People are uncomfortable by change. That's just human nature. And we can't really deal with change until we're in it and sort of dealing with it. If we just look at the pandemic and we understand the disruption that the pandemic brought us, and you just boil it down to numbers, which is imperfect because we're talking about people. But if we just look at the numbers, you begin to understand the scope of what those of us that are working in workforce and economic development and all these related kind of fields, some of the challenges that we're trying to address on behalf of people. Texas set a record in February of 2020, February this year, of the most number of Texans that were working in Texas at any one time. 30 days later, we saw initial unemployment claims that were 60 times higher than they had been in February. 30 days after that, our phone was ringing 3,000 times a minute. 3,000 times a minute. That's 16 million phone calls in 1 week, all related to unemployment claims, other situations that families were facing. If we move forward to today, we see that TWC has paid out a little over 6 million initial claims for unemployment. That's not quite 6 million people because some folks have multiple claims depending on how they're working and the different things that they're looking for. If you would, I've been working on COVID for 60% of my tenure at TWC. So since I've been a commissioner and chairman, 60% of the time I've been here has been spent working on the COVID pandemic and all the related different responses that TWC has had to that. If you really want to do some math and do a little crunch, I'm not best at that. But if you know how you have dog years, we say a dog year is 7 years. It really feels like we have pandemic years. We do about 7 times the number of claims in Texas this year that we did last year. And it sure feels like the last 10 months, it feels like 7 years to me. And so it is something that we continue to work on. We try not to let the sense of overwhelmingness get to us. It's a lot of people. We've paid out more than $35 billion in benefits, both state and federal. And these numbers are staggering. But there's a little bit of upside that I'm seeing in the economy that I think translates well for us as we enter into 2021. For example, we've had 6 months of sustained economic growth. We've added jobs each month for the last 6 months. Since we saw a big decrease in April, we've seen things moving in the right direction. Now you'll see the unemployment rate fluctuate. People come in and out of the labor force, and it changes your denominator on the equation. So sometimes a higher unemployment rate doesn't mean that we didn't add jobs. We just might have added fewer jobs than we added the month before. I think the fundamentals of the economy remain strong. I think there are things that we can build on. I think that some industries, some businesses, some entrepreneurs are still charting a little bit of a course. The pandemic has given us some things that we didn't necessarily understand well in terms of how we would do business. And so there's been a large conversion to different ways to deliver services, different ways to deliver products, different ways to deliver food, and different ways that consumers interact with businesses. And I think during this 10-month period that we've been working on this, it really has we've really found some ways for businesses to continue to deliver what their customers need. And it changes the landscape a little bit. Really, when you're under pressure like we are right now, I think that we start to see innovation take effect. The same innovations that these companies and other businesses have taken in serving their customers, I think you're seeing a lot of government agencies doing some innovations. TWC certainly has, and I want to talk about that real briefly. I want to talk about innovation in a larger sense before we do that. Innovation is good. Innovation is good when it helps you solve problems quickly. And we've had to solve a number of problems quickly through this pandemic time. We've seen companies go totally virtual. We've seen technology online that let companies let their employees work from anywhere. We've seen companies find ways to use technology to better serve both their employees and their customers. These things don't necessarily mean we need fewer employees. In fact, sometimes the technology means more. Innovations, big and small, have really helped us find ways for our economy to continue to show the strength that the Texas economy has been for the last, actually probably a decade. Little things, margaritas to go, I like that one. That was a good innovation. We have different ways we watch movies and television. It's simple things for the household. It's larger things for the economy. The sum of all those things really puts us in a position to push this economy that we're seeing wanting to grow, that we're seeing wanting to thrive into the next year, and really find some ways to focus on workforce when we did that. In March, I remember in early March, we had a commission meeting where our unemployment insurance director told us that there was an anomaly in the number of claims filed because it had gone up and there was no reason for it. A week later is when we really understood what the pandemic was all about. So we, at that point, started quickly discussing ways that TWC might be effective, might be in some ways very efficient at delivering the kinds of help that people we thought might need during the pandemic. So we set aside some money. Through March and April and part of May, we studied how our programs could best be fitted to help people. One of the things that we did is we knew we weren't going to be able to do a lot of in-person kind of events. And so we set aside that money for a massive open source training program that we're running today through our Workforce Solutions offices. Any citizen can sign up, get some online training that I think provides some legitimate upskill, reskill information that they can use to bolster their career. If you find yourself out of work and you don't want to be, through no fault of your own, and you've perfected your unemployment claim and you're thinking about how to get back in the workforce, take advantage of this training program that's available right now. It's online. It's something you can do from anywhere you can get to a computer. And there's legitimate things in there, I think, for office workers, manufacturing workers, and others that really serve that reskill, upskill niche that is becoming increasingly critical for how the workforce is going to continue to grow in this state. At the same time, we were looking at the money that we had set aside for skills development fund for the year, and realizing that community colleges and other educational providers were not going to be doing business as usual. And so the need to reprogram some skills development fund money in a way to make it usable for our community colleges and others, that became of critical importance. And so we did that. We have what I think is a fantastic streamlined application that lets folks plug right into that money and put that to work. And we've seen an incredible response to that. That skills development fund money has set aside some more in-depth, some more specialized training for folks, reskill, upskill, an opportunity to really get back in the workforce, or in a lot of cases, move up in the workforce to a different job, a newer job, a better job that you've been looking at for some time. All of these things are going on, and these programs that we're able to deliver from TWC doesn't happen in a vacuum. Groups like this Office of Employer Initiatives that's putting on the meeting here today, other groups here at the agency are really working with our constituents to make sure that these programs are in place, accessible, operational, so that you can put that to work for you immediately. Now, they're going to talk this week, the rest of this week, today and tomorrow, about a lot of programs that are available here from the agency. There's people that can help walk you through every facet of that program. Now, I don't always think that programs are the solution to the problem, but they certainly can be a big part of the solution, particularly when there's dollars that, say, a local community is having trouble getting to the end. If we can help be the last dollar on a good project for training, a good project for matching employers with the right workforce, a good project just simply for bolstering your local workforce to be ready for what's next, I hope you'll give us an opportunity to do that. And that sort of leads me into what I think is a pretty critical point. We're adding jobs each month. There's programs in place to help people get the kind of upskill, reskill training that they might be looking for to ensure that they can remain strong in the workplace. The fundamentals of the economy remain sound, like we've already talked about. And then 2021 is on the horizon. We're seeing companies make more and more announcements as they figure out the virtual world and how they're going to interact in it, what they're going to do in terms of hiring and job creation, really across the state. It's been pretty interesting to see the geographic distribution of that, because I think it's been pretty sound, and that's totally organic. That's companies doing their thing with very little influence from anyone other than local communities who say, yes, we can do that. I think that for many of us that are practitioners in this space, where we're going to find ourselves in 2020 is where we really started 2020 with. When January and February were showing such strong job growth, I think that fundamental situation hasn't changed. It's just seen through a pandemic lens now. I think the fundamental keys for Texas's workforce and how workforce impacts the economy remain unchanged. Simply put, if 100% of the jobs in this state are created by employers, one of TWC's primary tasks remains making sure that employers know how to find the skilled talent that they need for that company to be successful in this state. Which means that all those individual Texans that are working there can find success for themselves and their families. And it's just an incontrovertible fact that when individual Texans are successful, and if as many individual Texans can be successful as we can help, then Texas as a state becomes more successful. We've got real opportunities to do that. Whether you access one of these programs or you're just simply putting the right pieces in place so that employers can continue to find those employees, those types of things really set us up well for 2021 and the opportunities that'll come our way. I was working in January, February of 2020 quite a bit on what I call the middle skills gap. I think there's a number of jobs that people could be promoted into. I think it's a fundamental issue in terms of what skills they possess that they did not acquire, either through some post-secondary education they just didn't get to, or they didn't get the right kind of on-the-job training. You know what? the why becomes less important than the what. And the what is this. We've got probably, I mean, it's hard to measure, but let's just say, if you would, that there's 1 million jobs out there that fall into this middle skills gap. That if we could get folks some kind of quality training, some credential of consequence that they could put to work and move themselves up in the company, that does 2 things. It's improved the financial position of that household, and it's created an opportunity at the entry level for another household. That kind of incremental gain in workforce is so critical for us to work on. And it's meetings like this one where we will continue to build on that fact to really help keep the Texas workforce gaining the way we've seen it and the way we'd like for it to do. And it gives us a great platform for the future. And I'll finish by saying these things. That's not going to happen all by itself. That kind of focus on the middle skills gap, or matching employees with employers and employers with employees, ensuring that people continue to position themselves so they can fully participate in the workforce, doesn't happen by itself. And it doesn't happen solely at TWC. You know, I don't think we talk about workforce enough. I was 4.5 years Governor Abbott's one of his chief advisors on economic development issues. I sat in on a lot of pitch meetings where communities were talking to a company, trying to get that company to create jobs in that community. I don't remember a single time where we did not discuss workforce. Not one time. We talked about workforce every single time. And what that tells me is that it's always going to be a topic, but I don't always perceive that all the people that are involved with this are talking with one another. And I think if we can all do a better job of coming together and understanding the power of what we're doing, you know, I think we can speed things up and maybe do that much better job, particularly with the situation we find ourselves in, the pandemic. I remain convinced, and I've said many, many times, that our business environment, our culture of business in Texas, it is actually not our #1 recruiting tool. So many people outside the state believe it's our business environment, but I'm telling you, it's the workforce. That's what the businesses really want to plug into. It's the people of Texas. Now, our business environment's a great retention tool, because if you come here looking for the very best employees and you start doing business here, you're going to realize this is a great state to do business in. Those 2 things working together have really situated our economy where it was in February of this year, and where I think we can really push it back to in 2021. We still have some things to deal with the pandemic. Let's don't minimize those things. But if we stay focused on the people, if we stay focused on the businesses, we stay focused on the communities, I think we have so many tools at our disposal, a lot of which you're going to hear about in this meeting today. I really think we can get to where we need to be. So, Mary, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to say a few words. I'm so excited about things you guys are working on. So much enthusiasm in your crew, so many good folks working on so many things. I know it's hard to keep it all sorted out, but you've got a great crowd today. We're up to 208. I've been watching the ticker go as I went, because I was trying to see how many people I was running off, and it hasn't been any. We've added a few people while I kept talking. I'm gonna stop talking now so they'll stick around. So excited to hear some things that you guys are working on. I hope the crowd is too, because this is some powerful things, and I think it's going to push us to a powerful place where we can get some things done.
Into our panelists, touching on that idea of innovation and how evaluate what we're doing and how we can do it better. And certainly we're taking our cues from business on that. So thanks for sharing some time with us this morning, for kicking us off. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. So before we get started, obviously we had a little technical glitch a little while ago, and I want to acknowledge the work that goes on behind the scenes for anything like this. We have an amazing team here at TWC, and y'all heard me call out Julia a moment ago, who works tirelessly to pull these things off. And in spite of of any technical glitches we have on our end. They do a fantastic job supporting us and pulling us through. So to the TWC team behind the scenes, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Before we get started on our agenda today, one more thing. I'd like to take a moment to introduce the newest team member here in the Office of Employer Initiatives. Christy Cavanis is about to share what's on the agenda for today. And Christy is the manager of employer engagement and community outreach here at TWC. Christy brings extensive experience with corporate operations, including management, marketing, and communications. And most recently, she worked in economic development and the travel tourism industry in the city of Lubbock. So Christy, good morning.
Thanks, Mary.
Yeah.
I'm honored to be here and to have the opportunity to work with this incredibly talented team of professionals. And there's nothing better than promoting the great state of Texas. I'm also really excited to learn alongside you about all the programs the OEI team manages. Today, we will discuss Skills Development Fund, Recruit Texas, Skills for Small Business, Self-Sufficiency Fund, and the JET program, Jobs and Education for Texas. I want to give a shout out to the planning team who put all of this together. Great job making the magic happen. The first session, The New Face of Skills, will begin at 9:45. This session will explore the Skills Development Fund and Recruit Texas. Looking at the time, so grab your cup of coffee and be back here in about 17 minutes and we'll get started. Thanks for being here with us today.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our Socially Distanced Officer of Employer Initiatives Forum. My name is Seth Green, and I'm the Skills Development Fund Outreach Specialist for the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex and North Central Texas. The Skills Development Fund segment this morning is going to address traditional Skills Development Fund grants, the Skills COVID Training Initiative, and Recruit Texas. They're all on the same application now. We'll have a few minutes for questions at the end. So feel free to add them to the chat box and we'll address those as we can. Joining me this morning will be Tim Samuels with the Ascend Institute at Dallas College. Tim, would you tell us a little bit about yourself, just a quick bio and some information on the Ascend Institute and your role with Dallas College?
Seth, thank you so much for having me this morning. It's such a pleasure. I got to tell you before I do that, how impressed I am with the statewide participation that we have today. You know, as far east as Texarkana that I've seen, as far west as El Paso, and all the way down south to Harlingen and North Texas. So, and all points in between. So delighted to see the audience today. Yeah, you know, with the Ascend Institute, you know, Seth, it's a newly formed entity that we put together just in 2019 as part of an initial phase in to the consolidation efforts of Dallas College. And as many people know on this call, we've gone from 7 independently accredited colleges to 1, and that's been a major transformation in 2020 when SACS gave us the official go-ahead and approval to move forward. So the Ascend Institute, Seth, and for the audience, essentially serves as the corporate engagement or corporate partnership arm of Dallas Colleges, where again, we centralized and consolidated all of those corporate training services as one entity. My background has been in higher ed ever since Skills Development Fund grants have been around, about 20 years. Started in 2000, working in a community college system and moved to Dallas about 9 years ago. And so my second system, primarily as a dean of academic programs or an executive dean of workforce and continuing education. And most recently now coming down to the Ascend Institute to help this entrepreneurial new startup to form this corporate partnership arm.
Awesome, awesome. Well, to begin with, I guess we're gonna have to talk about an elephant in our virtual room today. It's gonna take a lot of blame over the next couple of days. As Chair Daniel discussed, it's had wide-ranging effects on every program in the Office of Employer Initiatives, owing to the toll it took on the businesses we serve. Most of you know the effect it had on the Skills Development Fund, but you'll pardon me for a quick recap just to get us all on the same page. When COVID-19 pandemic hit in earnest, the needs of both employers and employees throughout the state changed. Our pre-pandemic focus on upskilling had to give way, at least in part, to the needs to retrain employees to fill gaps in the midst of a major economic impact. We also saw an unprecedented number of displaced workers. Chairman Daniel discussed that in pretty serious detail. But along with shifting business needs throughout the state, these range from retooled manufacturing facilities to COVID-specific training in the service sectors to labor shortages in the medical sector. And the result of those needs and our efforts was the Skills COVID Training Initiative, with which so many of you are now familiar. Skills COVID offered us a lot of flexibility in responding to training needs throughout the state. We were able to offer Shell grants to colleges of up to $250,000 without them having an identified business partner in place. This was a part of a streamlined application that allowed them to respond much more quickly to training needs throughout the state. We were able to upskill displaced workers, place them in new jobs. We saw a lot of this during the layoffs, a lot of layoffs, in a very short amount of time. Most of you remember, with traditional skills, we weren't allowed to train unemployed people. We had to train full-time employees of the business itself. A lot of our displaced employees, after the pandemic hit, decided they wanted to change industries, change jobs, and we were able to help them through the Skills COVID Training Initiative. I saw some major programs. I know Tim's going to talk about a few with Dallas College, but I saw some others, notably with Grayson College in the medical sector, that's still going on right now. So great job with them. We were able to focus less on categorical thresholds for training and more on the immediate COVID-fueled needs of the company. Many of these companies had to downsize, and the remaining workers had to take on supervisory roles. This meant they needed a lot of non-technical training, such as management, communications, diversity, a lot of the stuff HR wants managers to have, they need to have, but that wouldn't really have been possible under a regular skills framework. The reskilling also required general technical training for the remaining workers to shore up labor losses. Here we're talking about office software, general office knowledge, technical training that, again, might have posed a challenge under the regular skills framework that we were able to do under Skills COVID. We also streamlined the application process. Traditional SDF grants, you remember, had faced a 60 to 90 day approval period, but Skills COVID applications were approved in a much more timely manner, much quicker. Then we had the end of our fiscal year, August 31st. Most of you know that, working with the state. The pandemic did not end though, and the new fiscal year brought a new application and some changes to the rules for the Skills Development Fund. The new SDF application combines Skills Development Fund, Skills COVID, and Recruit Texas on one application. Now, this is going to allow the colleges to work together to agree on a program that best fits their needs. And the regional SDF representatives are going to be able to offer technical assistance throughout the process, regardless of the program that the business partner ends up choosing. It also allows for a $50,000 Shell grant for regular skills without an identified business partner. This is a little bit of a holdover from Skills COVID. These still are two distinct programs, and Skills COVID is going to have a little bit more stringent requirements. So this is going to allow the colleges to address training needs in a timely manner, even for companies that might not fit directly into a Skills COVID grant. It's going to combine general technical and non-technical training in the same category, allowing more supervisory and soft skills training where needed. Now, with the Skills COVID, we had kind of a relaxed attitude toward those, toward the business technical, general technical, and non-technical training categories. Most of you remember, for regular skills now, we're still going to be sticking with 55% business technical. That's going to be our focus. But the 45% remaining can be any combination of non-technical and general technical. The 10% cap on non-technical soft skills training sometimes presented a challenge to the training needs of the business, and the new SDF rules allow us to better address those needs, especially in a COVID initiative, COVID era, where some of these businesses might, again, not fit directly into a COVID framework, but we can still address those needs. We also have an increase in unwavered individual funding for regular SDF grants. Again, this is a holdover from our Skills COVID. Most of you remember before COVID hit, we had a training cap of about $1,800 before we had to go looking for waivers from our evaluations team. Now we have a cap of $2,000. We also still have some waivers and in-kind funding we can look at with businesses to meet their needs, but this allows us a little bit more flexibility in meeting the training needs of these businesses as they recover from COVID and as they upskill. The biggest change, I think, is going to be workforce development boards are now eligible applicants. This was in the statute. We didn't really have rules for it up until COVID hit. And when COVID hit, we invited the workforce development boards to come in and apply for skills development fund grants alongside the colleges. This is going to remain in place. While some of the workforce boards might choose not to pursue these grants for whatever reason, some don't have the bandwidth. This scenario does allow for a lot more flexibility with the third-party training providers. So that's just a quick high-level view of the changes to the Skills Development Fund over the past year. Now we're going to get into a few panel discussion questions with Tim. Tim, just to begin with, would you give us a little bit of information about the changes you saw in training needs with COVID and how Dallas College responded to those needs, both with Skills COVID and whatever other ways you'd like to discuss?
Seth, that was, it was an amazing time as I reflect back to last March, and I applaud TWC and your work, Seth, and others for being responsive in a way that we didn't expect, we didn't anticipate. And, as I look back on that time, we were, again, it's important to note that we were still 7 independently accredited colleges right at the time that the special COVID funding came about. And so all of our 7 colleges began to look at how can we meet the employer needs with the special TWC COVID funding. We ended up with 5 projects being submitted to TWC since we were still 7 colleges, all of which were approved, and everything from IT to healthcare to manufacturing to the restaurant and hospitality industry. And so, it was amazing to see how quickly we were able to kind of transform our work, how quickly the special application, the new application with COVID, streamlined, as you said. It was more seamless, it was quicker, it was more simplified. We were able to get submission and approval in little to no time at all. So that work allowed us to quickly, in a matter of days or a few weeks, not months, to really expedite getting service delivery out there to the employers. And we're talking about companies, Seth, that really changed the way they do business. And it was because of the TWC, the approach, the COVID funding, the dollars available to these companies. A couple of examples where we had companies that changed their product lines altogether. They may have been in manufacturing producing whatever it was, but maybe we had a special societal need across the state and the nation, and face guards or face shields and masks. Maybe we needed hand sanitizer. And so these companies, because of this funding opportunity, began to change the way they did business to meet the needs of and the demands of our time during the pandemic, to really create really what we needed. We needed safety, we needed health, and we needed protocols, and we needed all of those kinds of business opportunities. And it was because of this grant that we were able to do that.
Awesome. Just, you mentioned it, so I'll go ahead and ask about this too. You talked about the transition Dallas College had from 7 campuses, to 1 campus. How did COVID affect them, and what effect did that have on just running your projects?
It really didn't, because right at this time, Seth, the Ascend Institute was forming its internal team. We were a little bit ahead of the SACS notification as one college, but we knew we were going that way. We knew we were going to apply for that. And so we were putting everything in motion to make that happen. So we began the consolidation on May the 18th before SACS approved us as one college in June. And so we inherited all of the people from the 7 colleges that either were engaged in skills development fund grants by job or role or contract training, in some cases CE and workforce development. And so we formed the Ascend Institute ahead of the SACS notification so that we could then meet the needs of the COVID epidemic. And, Mark Hayes, our former Vice Chancellor of Workforce and Economic Development, put this together in March and April. And so we were already in play to move this forward very, very quickly. Again, trying to move to the speed of business because we had to in these unexpected times.
Awesome. Now we talked about that. We talked a little bit about the changes in the new Skills Development Fund grant. We've had the new application on the books for about 4 months now, a little bit less, I think. And can you tell us a little bit about how those changes have affected how Dallas College does business with SDF, how it has affected the way you recruit, how it's affected the perception of the companies you're working with?
Seth, you talked about a couple of these key points that we've already seen fruitful for us in our work. You talked about the consolidation or collapsing of the business technical and the general technical and that 55-45 split. It's funny, just 2 days ago, I was on a call with the Southwest Regional Director of Human Resources for FedEx. And if you don't understand the culture, just a quick example of FedEx, they love to hire from within. They don't necessarily require a degree. And so if you have a GED and you're a good employee, you demonstrate the proper work behaviors, and you get a job, they like to elevate you into mid-manager positions. And one of the things with FedEx is, we needed more of those soft skills for these folks, because a lot of times they've not received any formal education in leadership or in management. And so with the relaxation, if you will, of the new TWC SDF protocols and requirements, now there's more soft skill and leadership and management opportunities that can be afforded to not just FedEx, but really anybody. And in today's time, so many employers will tell you that, I'll hire you for your technical skills, but I'll fire you for your soft skills. And so this is a huge development for us, Seth. And I think the state of Texas, and I think our colleagues on the call today would agree, being able to offer more of those emotional, intelligent, soft skills. Toyota calls them the essential work behaviors. I prefer that term than soft skills, because they really are more so the hard skills. But that's huge. I think that affordability to us through that. And I really think too, another big one for me, and I think some of my colleagues may agree, is again, the relaxation on the use or utilization of third-party vendors. In the past, it's been kind of expected that we would have, kind of that 50% use of that. But I think TWC recognizing that for colleges to build capacity, to build bandwidth, we treat those third-party contracted providers as one of our own. They follow the same, hiring expectations and reporting expectations, and whether it's be course syllabi, all of those kind of things, and job performance, just as though as an adjunct or a full-time faculty of a college. So for me, those are two of the biggest ones. And again, the shell, just the shell contract, the SDF contract or application being much more aligned with SSBs, providing us with an opportunity to submit without a partner. We may be relying upon some labor market intelligence data, for example, to where we're ready to look at, different industry needs and, high demand, high occupation needs in the North Texas area. And we may have some data in front of us that we go, we've got employers in mind because we know who they are, and we want to go after an SDF application, and we may not have the specific partner identified, but being able to submit to do that, I think is going to really pave the way for us going forward.
Okay. And what are you seeing as some of the major business needs in Dallas College's service area right now?
Well, we look at LMI data every day. Fortunate through the Ascend Institute to have the capability to look at all those tools and resources, Seth, and clearly for the Ascend Institute today, we're focused on 5 major industry clusters. Certainly, and it's probably not different from any of my other colleagues on the call, but it definitely in our area, IT and healthcare, construction and manufacturing, and logistics distribution. If you look at the number of jobs, where we had several hundred thousands of these jobs unfilled in 2019 before the pandemic. So we were able to hone in and zero in on these different kinds of industries, and then drilling down to understand the specific occupational types, and then working with employers through their SOC codes, and really begin to look at what is beautiful about the SDF.
We lost you. Still there, Tim?
Still. Seth, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, just, I don't know how much I cut out on you, but,
Just about 10
look.
seconds.
Okay. So you got the 5 industry clusters. Certainly we'll look at anything in retail. We'll look at anything else that an employer has, but those are the middle skilled jobs, Seth, are the biggest key for us to address. And so that is really the head and shoulders above what the biggest need is in Dallas County, North Texas as a whole. And so that's our major focus with the deployment of the team with the Ascend Institute.
Awesome. Awesome. You touched on this a little bit more, but maybe just a little bit more if you wouldn't mind. Traditionally, what have you seen as some of the bigger challenges of the SDF grant, really before COVID, and how did Skills COVID address that, and how is the new skills rules address that?
Yeah, Seth, I appreciate the question. You know, before, when we had an employer, we had to have an employer partner or a consortium of employer partners. And by the time we got everything developed, even including a training plan, you know, it may take weeks into months. And by the time we were able to submit that in the training proposal, the Texas Workforce Commission for consideration and approval, you know, employers needed that training yesterday. But unfortunately, just giving, I hate to say it, the bureaucracy of our systems and practices, it took months, sometimes 6 months, sometimes 8 months before we had, you know, the final approval to move forward and getting a training program established and started. You know, I think with the new application process and some of the relaxation of requirements, and certainly you spoke about flexibility a while ago, Seth, that's what that gives us now. And that's huge for us as we truly try to meet the proverbial speed of business. I think this had to happen. And again, credit to TWC and, you know, always being with a listening ear to understand the challenges and concerns and questions, you know, coming from the colleges and now the workforce boards and other economic development stakeholders, which I really like, by the way. I love the fact that the workforce boards and the economic development folks and the ISDs and there's many of those folks on the call today. So I love the collaboration and I love the consideration of input from all of these stakeholders, because I think it's just going to transform how we do business going forward.
Awesome. Next, I want to shift a little bit back to look at Skills COVID and SDF together, because, you know, while funding lasts, we're going to keep the Skills COVID initiative on the books. So in Dallas, I guess, especially, you've got a big microcosm really of Texas there. Do you see a continued need for the specialized training and parameters offered by the COVID initiative grant?
You know, I'm speculating here, Seth, in some respect. Yes, I do. As we continue to see a surge of COVID active cases, you know, we stay tuned to our county judge every day. We've been up over 2,000 active cases in the last couple of weeks on several days. You know, yesterday, I think we reported about 1,368 active cases. So as we continue to see the surge of the cases, you know, we want to be prepared to meet the needs of employers who, once again, maybe need to change a product line to create more of masks and face shields, and with more emphasis on returning to work in a safe and healthy way. I haven't spoke about one of our biggest COVID participants, and that's the Texas Restaurant Association. Seth, we've had as many as 500 employers through this collaboration with Dallas College and the Texas Restaurant Association. We've got about 30 employers right now working through that current COVID grant. And there's no question to me, as we think about your question of, do we see an opportunity to continue to seek out and use the COVID grant money? And that in their case, the TRA, yes, because as many as 500 employers have kind of chimed in with interest. And so this, in fact, we've got this Texas Restaurant Certification Program between the Texas Restaurant Association and Dallas College as the driving force. It's a 5-course program to meet the needs of, you know, the restaurant and hospitality industry, which everybody on this call knows has been hit huge and far and hard with the COVID. And we have everything in that industry that's been turned upside down right now. So certainly with the Texas Restaurant Association collaboration that we have, I expect that, but I can still see that with our IT healthcare management grants. I can see that with manufacturing who are struggling right now with returning to people back to work face to face. So I think that the door is certainly open for continued interest in pursuing the special COVID funding.
Awesome. And you talked a little bit about the TRA project you're doing. Can you tell us a little bit more about any other COVID initiative training that you still have going, just to kind of give us an idea of what's still there, what's still needed?
Well, again, in those industries, I can't speak to the specifics, Seth, on the actual training outside of the main thing is being able to get people back to work face to face, you know, through our Dallas County Manufacturers Association and working with my team over in that area of the region. We continue to struggle with getting people back face to face. There's been a lot of conversion to online training, of course, but there's some of that highly technical training that is best served and needed in face-to-face instruction. And so, we're kind of pausing some things for now, which is obviously causing delays. But we're hoping after January that we can, see the trends with a trajectory of better numbers across the county, so that we then can get back to more face-to-face. We're going to follow every industry and every company protocol to getting people back to work. And of course, Dallas College has their own protocols to do that. But right now, the struggle is real, with the delays that we're experiencing, because, even Dallas College now working back from home again, at least through January the 4th, as we continue to see the recent surging of COVID cases.
Awesome. Okay. And you mentioned hands-on training. Could you elaborate just a little bit on that? Have you had to do hands-on training so far, and how have you addressed that?
We have done hands-on training. We've abided by and adhered to the industry safety protocols to return to work, meaning our faculty, our adjunct faculty, our providers of training, whether it be third party, to make sure that we were, lockstep with the industry partner, so that we met their demands for working in the workplace. Certainly Dallas College, we have our own protocols. So we had to be in concert with these companies to making sure we're all on the same page and getting back into the place of work. When you talk about manufacturing, whether it be CNC machining and, and whether it be printing companies and anything that required highly technical training, just some of that is best served face-to-face, because a lot of that could be competency based. And while online learning can certainly give you the theory and the aptitudes there, you had to be able to get into the place of business to really get that lab, training to do the skills and demonstrate the proficiencies and mastery of those skills.
Okay. Last question, and just right quick, we have a couple minutes left before we have to transition over to Recruit Texas. But the last one I wanted to address was the Workforce Development Board is now being eligible to apply for NSDF grants. They used to receive financial incentives for assisting in business recruitment. That's no longer the case. How has this affected Dallas College's, business recruitment efforts for grants? And what do you see as the continued role in working internally for recruiting, working with the workforce boards, and working now with your local EDCs as well?
Fortunately, Dallas College values, our workforce boards, our local workforce boards, specifically Workforce Solutions Greater Dallas. Seth, they've been a partner of Dallas College for so many years, working with the president and CEO, Lori Larea of Workforce Solutions Greater Dallas, but her whole team, the likes of Lynn Hoffman and Stephen Bridges and Richard Perez and Connie Rash and many others. I mean, we have a good relationship with those folks. And I think this new opportunity for the workforce boards, I think is going to enhance and strengthen our collaboration opportunities with the board. So I'm excited about that. I mean, I've had the pleasure of working with Lori Larea with some business relocation efforts. And you talk about Recruit Texas, where we've been at the table together as key stakeholders to look at companies relocating to Texas. And we all know, I think Tesla just relocated to Texas. So we've got so many folks that still are relocating to Texas. And so working very hand in hand with our local workforce boards is going to be critical and very instrumental, I think, to our success going forward. And so anything that we can do with our local workforce boards, we want to be active in participation. We want to be a key participant in that role, and anything that we can assist them with and vice versa. We want to engage that work very, very openly.
Sounds great. Thank you. Well, that's going to conclude the section for Skills Development Fund and Skills COVID. I'd like to transition now to my colleague, Marlon Drakes. So he's on.
Thank you, Seth.
And Marlon's going to discuss Recruit Texas. He's doing our pilot project for that. So Marlon, it's all yours.
Thank you, Seth. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marlon Drakes. I'm part of the OEI Skills Development Recruit Texas team. Today, we'll have the opportunity to hear from Larry Mcmanus, Director of Business Community and Development, Office of the Governor, and Randy Floyd, Program Manager for Corporate Initiatives, ACC. And together, you'll hear what collaboration would look like for a Recruit Texas project. But first, I'd like to provide you with a high-level overview of the Recruit Texas program. So the purpose of the Recruit Texas program is to provide training and support services for employers expanding or relocating their operations to Texas, with a focus on recruiting employers who will provide high complex employment opportunities. The program is meant as a larger economic package in collaboration from entities such as the Governor's Office and your local EDCs. If it's meant to be a regular training project, that's where the Skills Development Fund will come into place. But again, this is meant to be a larger economic package. Who's eligible? Public, community, or technical colleges, Texas A&M Engineering Services, TEKS, are eligible for this program. Unfortunately, under this statute, workforce boards are not eligible under this program. However, it does not exclude the board from participating at a local level. The program works in a few simple steps. Economic development corporations and other partners identify potential businesses that's willing to relocate to Texas, and they will work with the TWC's Recruit Texas team. The college will work with that business to develop the training program. Once that training program has been identified, the college and the business partner execute an agreement that outlines proposed Recruit Texas activities and the roles and responsibilities of each partner. TWC then reviews that application and provides funding to the college for the proposed Recruit Texas training activities. To speak more about the larger economic activities, I would like to introduce you to Larry Mcmanus, Director of Community Development, Office of the Governor. Larry.
Thank you, Marlon. I appreciate the opportunity to give an overview of what we do in the Governor's Economic Development Office, how we work with businesses who are looking to expand and or relocate into the state of Texas, and how we work closely with our Workforce Commission partners, Texas Workforce Commission, Office of Employer Initiatives, our local workforce boards, and our community colleges and colleges across the state. In general, our office will be a point of contact to companies who are considering expansion. Most of the projects we work are expansion type related. They can be in-state expansion, or they can be out-of-state expansion opportunities. We do from time to time have potential relocations. Relocations tend to cost more for companies, so generally what you see are the expansions. Our general process is a very decentralized approach towards economic development and business recruitment. We cannot do economic development without our local economic development partners and our regional economic development partners. They are integral to the entire process, and almost you can say they kind of drive the process. There are programs at the state level, there are programs at the local level. However, when a company winds up picking the state of Texas and deciding to expand there, the local community has a very important part, and the local economic development group has a very important part in assisting the company in accessing any programmatic dollars or incentives that might be available to them. And those include training dollars as well. So the typical process, and what was mentioned previously was Tesla. And to give you an idea of kind of how that worked, the company itself, sometimes companies employ consultants, site selection consultants. Sometimes they do it themselves. And in this particular case, the company itself reached out to our office, and we visited with them. And whenever a company is interested in expanding, generally what they're looking for is a potential site in the state. However, as Chairman Daniel had mentioned early on in his opening remarks, labor tends to be at the top of consideration. So depending on the size of the business, will kind of dictate where it makes sense for them to consider in the state of Texas. We don't direct companies where to go. We don't tell them they have to be here. We don't tell them they have to be in this part of the state. They make that decision themselves. We do have interaction with our local economic developers who inform us of what they have available throughout the year through visits, especially with our regional representatives. We do have regional representatives out across the state that are interacting with our economic development partners. And from what we learn, we're able to talk intelligently to these companies. However, it is their decision as to where they want to consider and where they want to go in the state of Texas. So with the Tesla project, they came to us, they completed a site requirement form, which allowed us to make a request for information to our economic development partners. And we only work with our economic development community partners on potential projects that are considering the state of Texas. And as you can imagine, all our projects are confidential. So unless the company itself makes it known that they are searching, we pretty much do not talk about the projects, and we keep them competition sensitive. We treat them as competition sensitive and keep them confidential. So we'll reach out to our community partners. Community partners will put packages of information together, including sites, but they're also including programmatic information, which includes the training funds. So things like skills development are very important in the responses to these companies when they're looking at the state of Texas. And the economic development corporations or the economic development organizations at the local level will have already had communication with their partners in the workforce area. So that includes the local workforce boards and the local community college. And as we reach out, interact, information is facilitated between companies and the communities. Eventually, what we wind up doing at the state level is we kind of take a step back and let the community start interacting and negotiating with the company. And that's at that point where some of you may have already been engaged in some of these site searches. And the company will probably do site visits and will want to meet with other businesses and with the workforce training partners that the economic development organizations wind up working with. So at some point, after the company has evaluated its information and has determined that the programs that are potentially suitable to be pursued will be pursued, then they will work closely with the local communities. They'll make an announcement. In the case of Tesla, they've made an announcement located just outside the city of Austin in Del Valley. And they themselves will be working with the Austin Community College on skills development or training dollars. And so that's just a very large picture or high level picture of how we work projects from an economic development standpoint. There's also an avenue where a company may go directly to a community and the community will contact us and we'll work the project in that manner as well. So there's different ways to work with these companies, different ways to get involved, but we look closely to our workforce partners at the local level to work with these companies. So with that, I'll introduce Randy Floyd with the Austin Community College to talk about how they use the skills development program and the Recruit Texas program that was initiated by Texas Workforce Commission. Randy?
Thank you, Larry. I appreciate it. That diagram that you see on your screen right there is really just a simple visual representation of the strategic approach we've taken at ACC since 2013 to build training capacity for the advanced manufacturing industry cluster in Central Texas using SDF funding. As probably everyone on the call is aware, the advanced manufacturing industry took a really hard hit in the downturn of 2008, and many of the major players permanently downsized their internal training departments. We felt strongly that we could step into that void and we could create a vehicle that companies could share to develop that crucial middle skills workforce. And we're talking about technicians and engineers, the people who really need upskill training on an ongoing basis to remain competitive. So we started with Samsung Semiconductor in 2014. If you don't know, Samsung is the second largest semiconductor chip supplier in the world behind Intel. We worked closely with them really to identify their major training needs of the technician and engineering workforce. And then we built our first iteration of what is called our Advanced Manufacturing Fast Track curriculum in 2014. We spent the next 3 years working with them very closely to refine that program. And by 2017, we had successfully upskilled about 1,000 technicians and engineers with that curriculum. We followed that up with a STF partnership in 2018, and this time it was with Applied Materials. Applied is the largest semiconductor equipment manufacturer in the world. And so during that grant, we had the opportunity to, I think, to really refine the program even further to meet some of their very specific needs. Followed that up in 2019 with a third SDF partnership, this time with NXP Semiconductor, another large chip supplier. And by that time, we really didn't have to adjust the curriculum at all. In fact, we invited a couple of their managers from the company to attend one of our training sessions at Applied Materials, and they came away completely sold on the curriculum. So we wrapped up that grant, and then in 2020, we've entered into a partnership with Flex, formerly Flextronics. If you don't know, Flex is the third largest electronics manufacturer in the world. And now they're leveraging the curriculum, plus they're getting us to design a couple of new classes that are specifically suited to their needs. Now, you probably noticed that I mentioned the size of the companies, and I did that deliberately because it really reflects our strategic approach to the industry and how critical SDF has been to building our capacity. I think it would be probably impossible for me to overstate how important SDF has been in allowing us to pursue this very high-level strategic direction for the advanced manufacturing industry. In fact, I don't think we could have even gotten out of the gate with this plan if it hadn't been for SDF. And that kind of brings us around to Tesla. So like everybody knows Tesla's coming. Tesla's coming to Texas. In fact, Elon Musk recently announced that he's moved here. And Recruit Texas is playing a pretty key role in that move. I can tell you that Tesla has an extremely aggressive training program for their technicians. They call it their Tesla Fast Start program, which, as it turns out, just dovetails very nicely with our Fast Track manufacturing program. So we're in the process right now of building a Recruit Texas grant that's going to allow us to not only make the necessary curriculum adjustments that are going to be required to meet their needs, but also to obtain some of the really critical robotic equipment that's going to be needed to train their technicians and mid-level engineers. You know, when we started this program back in 2013, I got to tell you, we honestly had hoped we would arrive exactly where we are today. We had hoped that an advanced manufacturer like Tesla would be looking at possibly setting up shop somewhere in the state of Texas, and that this leverage training model that we'd come up with for advanced manufacturers would resonate with them. And obviously, we can't say that, or even pretend to know what all the factors were that led Texas to choose Central Texas. But I can tell you that as we've been in meetings with them for preparations for this Recruit Texas grant, they have told us consistently how impressed they are with our degree of preparation to deliver the sort of fast track program that they're not only accustomed to, but that their technicians require. And I guess that really defines our strategic approach as it relates to Recruit Texas. We really wanted, when we started this whole program, I guess 7 years ago, to create this fast track manufacturing curriculum. We were hoping it was going to do two things. The first was that the large corporate players that were in the industry, and we're talking again Samsung, Applied Materials, et al., that they were going to know that this was a program that they could come to rely upon. And they definitely have over the last few years, because we knew that if we were successful at that very high level, we could also deliver successfully to the smaller industry players in advanced manufacturing as well. And that's what we've done, particularly with the pandemic during this time. But secondly, we wanted to be in a position so that any advanced manufacturer like this technicians, mid-level engineers that drive that workforce need the sort of fast start upskill training that our program is providing. So I can tell you that right now we're meeting with Tesla weekly as we work on the Recruit Texas grant, and we're tracking towards getting our submission into Marlon and his team in January. So that's where we stand, Marlon.
Thank you, Randy. Christina, do we have any questions?
We currently don't have any questions in the chat box at this time. However, if you could, I do have one question. You mentioned for Recruit Texas that it is for businesses that are moving to Texas or expanding in Texas. What about businesses that are relocating in Texas?
Sure, so that's a good question. Hang on one second, let me get my camera on for you.
Yes, we want to see that beautiful face.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so businesses that are relocating, so it has to be a business that's relocating to Texas. It cannot be a business that's already established in Texas and relocating to another part of the state. That's not allowed. It has to be a business that is relocating to Texas from another state or country for that matter.
Okay, thank you. And then are there any specific skills that we're targeting or specific industries that are targeted for this program?
So not necessarily. That will be dependent upon the business need, and what sort of training or curriculum or sort of manufacturing that business is doing. So where the program outlines high skill, that will be dependent upon the business itself.
Okay. And then can we use it to get, can Recruit Texas be used for equipment, instructors, so forth?
Yes, Recruit Texas can be used to purchase equipment. However, that equipment is property of the college and not the business. Recruit Texas program can also be used to fast track curriculum development. In the case of the college may not have the curriculum already identified that the business needs. The Recruit Texas Fund would also fund fast track curriculum development for that program.
Okay, so that's all the questions I have at this time. Oh, one more question came to me, I'm sorry. Can it be used for a third party to develop curriculum?
Yes, third-party training is allowed under the Recruit Texas program.
Okay. Well, that is now all of the questions that I have. Thank you so much for your time. Seth,
welcome.
we're going to turn it over to you.
Thank you all for joining us. If you have any more questions, please feel free to contact your local SDF representative. We do have a map available online. And with that, welcome aboard, Christy. Worked with you before. Look forward to working with you some more. Have a wonderful day, everyone. And join us again in about 15 minutes for our next session. Christina, go ahead.
Thanks again so much for joining us. Our next session will be Small and Mighty Resources for Skills for Small Business. Please join us at 11 o'clock. Thank you. I'm sorry, please join us at 10:45. My apologies. The next session starts at 10:45. Thank you so much.
All righty, folks, looks like we are at 10:45. We're going to go ahead and get started here. My name is Matt Snidecki. I have the honor of being the program manager for the Skills for Small Business grant offered by the Workforce Commission. This is a position that I've been in since I joined the Workforce Commission in 2017. We do a lot of cross-training in our office, so we are all very familiar with each other's programs. But this is the program that I have been majorly involved in since I joined TWC. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Before I do want to echo some sentiments from previous speakers. I saw that we had 190 people on for that first session, and I just want to thank everyone, obviously, for joining, but I obviously want to thank our planning team and everyone on our side of the house who had an involvement in putting this together, because obviously by those numbers, it's been a big success so far. So we're going to get started today. We're just going to hop right on into the Skills for Small Business program. We're just going to start by talking about some of the program parameters. This program specifically targets private for-profit businesses in the state of Texas. Now, the big difference between this program and say SDF outside of the customized training piece is the size of the business that we're targeting. So for this grant, for eligibility purposes, you have to have from 1 employee to 99. For this parameter, we are looking at global footprint. So if you are a smaller subsidiary or attached to a larger corporation, we are going to look at all of those employee total numbers when reviewing your application. Another thing that I'd like to hone in on is, in order to be considered eligible as a business partner, you have to have a valid UI tax number with TWC. During our review process, that's something that we're going to check, but I always encourage colleges or other entities who are working or promoting the SSB program to be familiar with that. So if they don't have a UI tax number, we don't tell them they're going to be eligible. We run into that a lot where businesses apply and they may not have a valid UI tax number. So obviously that application is not eligible. The program pays $1,800 and $900 respectively for new employees and for existing employees. So for those two categories of employees, new and existing, new employee is defined as someone who has been hired within the last 12 months. And we actually use the application submission date as the end date there. So anyone hired between 12 months of that submission date would be eligible for that full amount. Now, this is just all in a 12-month period. So after that 12-month period ends, a new hire would not be a new hire anymore, but they would be eligible as an existing employee for $900. And my colleagues will attest to this a little bit later, but you would be very surprised with the amount of training that you can receive for $1,800 and $900 respectively. I think the neat caveat about this program and the way it functions is actually the fact that the courses that are available for funding under this grant program are actually public courses found in all of these community college, technical schools, and TEKS, their public catalog. So if you're a business online right now and you're saying, wow, this program seems like we could really benefit and it could benefit our employees, the first place I always encourage you to start is by looking at those course catalogs and seeing what's available. You may think you need some training and then you may see another training that sparks another idea. So that's a great place to start. So if you're a business and you check off all the other eligibility requirements, as an individual employee, who is eligible? So this program is for full-time W-2 employees. Again, as we just said on the previous slide, that covers both new and incumbent workers. And again, we're just using that 12-month period, that hiring period, to justify new or incumbent. And then I know a lot of folks on the call today are going to be familiar with prevailing wage. Depending on the job that the applicant holds, we're going to look at the wage and the prevailing wage that that person makes in your specific workforce development area. So just a real quick recap of prevailing wage. So if we're looking at a plumber, well, a plumber in El Paso may not make what a plumber in Dallas makes, or in Texarkana. So we're going to look at the wage that you submit on the application for this individual plumber. And then we're going to look at the prevailing wage in your workforce development area. So if an entry-level plumber made $10 an hour and an experienced plumber made $20 an hour, we're going to look at the 25th percentile of that wage gap, which is only $10. And again, I'm just using these numbers just so it's simple. So 25th percentile of that $10 would be $2.50. So in order for that individual to meet prevailing wage, they would have to be making $12.50 or more to be eligible. If an applicant is not meeting prevailing wage, we will always work with the business. If the amount is minuscule and the business would like to increase the wage, say it was a dime or even a nickel or a penny, then they are afforded that right to do so, and then that applicant would be eligible. So how does the process work? So obviously all of the training is provided by our college partners. They are the cog in the, or they are the piece of the wheel that really makes the Skills for Small Business grant work. However, we function in SSB with a shell contract. So that is the first place that the process has to start, is in order for a college or institution to provide SSB funded training, they have to have a contract established with the Workforce Commission. So now I just want to highlight this graphic on the right is as simple as it gets. It typically doesn't work this way, but just as a simple understanding of how the process works, I think this gets the job done. And I will say the funds are drawn down from workforce to the college, hence the arrow going down. And then the business would apply with the college through TWC almost as a scholarship. And once deemed eligible, they are sending their employees to the college to get upskilled, hence the up arrow. A lot of puns in that graphic. So with this program, what type of courses are funded? I know we talked about the public course catalog, and that's all great, but there's a lot of courses in those catalogs. The neat thing about this program is credit, continuing ed, and online courses are all funded and eligible. Now, there is a justification piece on the application where we need to hear from the business and get an understanding or justification of how these business or how these training courses are going to improve your business operations. I will note, we don't fund degree plans through this program. So sometimes the credit courses can get a little tricky in that regard. And I would say that about 90%, and I know Christy and Luis can confirm this, a lot of the courses that we see participated in throughout the state are going to either be continuing ed or online courses. Online courses also afford an awesome avenue for folks in rural areas who may not have an institution within driving range or within an immediate proximity. So online courses give them the awesome resource of taking these training courses from their computer or from their home. And I will note that you don't have to take a training course from a service provider in your area if the course is online. If someone in the state of Texas who is an eligible provider has a course and it's online, it is available to apply for. And here's just a list of some sample courses that we've seen participated in over the years. QuickBooks is a massive one that we see, accounting and bookkeeping. But one thing I do want to highlight about this slide is just the massive scope that we cover with these courses. Something from Microsoft training and Windows training to CAD and auto drafting to OSHA. So really anything under the sun that can improve your business operations is eligible to apply for. One of the big ones that we hear from employers all the time are soft skills, leadership training, customer services on there. How do you work with a team? All those things are imperative for a business to function, and they are all fundable under this grant. So this is just a quick data deep dive. I wanted to highlight here some of the numbers that we've requested or what we've gotten requested from applications, and then the training we've approved. So as you can see, the number has significantly gone up for dollar amount requested. FY19, I will note, our fiscal years start September of the previous year and run September to September. So obviously you can see if FY19 was a great year with almost over $500,000 more requested and $400,000 more approved in training. But then obviously we run into FY20 And with the combination of COVID obviously really impacting businesses and their priorities, a lot of folks were just trying to keep their doors open and not necessarily focused on immediate training. Coupled with the fact that we had an additional grant, our previous speakers talked about the COVID skills training initiative, and that afforded small businesses the opportunity to apply for that training as well and receive rapid response training through that grant program. So as you can see, COVID and the availability of another grant opportunity brought numbers down a little bit for FY20. And here is that data just plotted on a bar graph. So you can see that the program was really taking off and growing prior to COVID. And so as I wrap up here, I would be remiss if I didn't mention National Small Business Week. National Small Business Week is the first week every year of May. And we always like to promote and highlight small businesses throughout the state who have not only participated in the program, but really felt the benefits and grown. And as you can see, the megaphone is talking to all of you that we need your input for this. If you have participated in the program or you would like to participate in the program, we would love to hear your story and highlight that in our National Small Business Week video. We publish that again during National Small Business Week every year. So we would love your input. I know we have some phenomenal small business partners who have done wonderful things with this program. So we would love to hear and highlight those stories. So please don't hesitate. My contact information is coming up. So if you have any of those stories, please feel free to share them with them. We do have a video link. Playing videos through Zoom with this many folks and bandwidth can be a little tricky. So I'll go ahead and hop into the chat once I'm done speaking, and I'll put that hyperlink in there so you can all check it out. It's our National Small Business Week video from a couple years ago, and it's really neat. It highlights 3 businesses in very differing industries, and it's very powerful to see how they've taken advantage of the program. So again, here is my contact information. Again, I'm sure a lot of folks were like, how does he spell that last name? I'm Matt Snidecki. Again, I'm the program manager for the Skills for Small Business Grant. There's my office and cell phone number, as well as my email address. And on the right, those hyperlinks, that top one is our Skills for Small Business email address. And then the bottom one is our homepage with the Workforce Commission for the SSB program. Now I would like to transition gears a little bit and get a fresh perspective from one of our college partners. They've been a fantastic steward for the program for a long time since I've been here. And I would like to introduce my 2 panelists, Luis Gonzalez, who's the Associate Dean of Continuing Education with Odessa College, and Christy Pruitt, who is the Business and Industry Sales Coordinator with Odessa College. Like I said, these folks have done phenomenal things with the program over the past couple years, and I would love for them to share some of their stories and their input about how they have benefited and how their small business community has benefited from this program. So I'm going to stop speaking and I'm going to turn it over to Luis and Christy.
Thank you, Matt. We appreciate it. Oh, we gotta make sure we're not echoing here. Can you hear me? Okay, can you hear me okay? Okay, perfect. So, okay. Thank you for having us here. We are excited to be able to share our story with you guys. Again, my name is Christy Pruitt, and I am the Business and Industry Sales Coordinator here at the Continuing Education for Odessa College.
And again, I want to echo what Christy said. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Mario, and others that were involved in this and inviting us. We're excited about this opportunity and excited about talk to you a little bit about SSB and the benefit that it's had for our community and our surrounding community for that too. Just so you'll know, at Odessa College, our service area, I think we have the largest service area is 32,000 square miles. So if you're familiar with West Texas and you know where we're located in Odessa, Texas, And you go far south as the Fort Davis area, Presidio, and you go that far south, you go as far west as almost, that's not quite there, but we go pretty far west, north. So we have a huge service area. And within that service area is a lot of rural communities, and what Matt was speaking about earlier about really that access. They have very limited access. There's no other institution really close to these businesses of this kind of opportunities. So that online is certainly a great resource for them. But also, as you'll learn, and Chris will talk about some of the companies that we have been able to provide assistance to in these rural communities and what the benefit is and how much they like that access to it. But again, both Christy and I, we started in continuing education almost about a month apart. I came in first, Christy followed, and but we were newbies. This is about 3 years ago. And we had learned as we were coming in and through the transition about the SSB. We'd heard about that. The outgoing staff members or team members were telling us about SSB. And we thought, okay, that sounds interesting. It sounds wonderful. Let's learn more about that. And so we really started to focus our attention on that. What we had learned at that point is the team at that point had utilized about $2,000, a little less than that. But when Christy and I came in, we started learning more about it. We thought, man, what a great opportunity. What a great opportunity for our companies and our businesses. Again, here in West Texas, in the center of the oil patch, if you will, there are lots, during the boom particularly, there are a lot of startups. So there are a lot of small businesses that are coming in that are wanting to hopefully take advantage and seek that opportunity during these oil booms. But what we realized in a lot of those startup companies is when they get started, the financial resources are very limited. And so we learned quickly that through the SSB, that this gives us and them an opportunity to help upskill their employees and their business alike too, so that they can perform what they need to do for their business. So it's been tremendous. We really have enjoyed it. And so we'll talk a little bit more about it and kind of tell about one of the businesses that we work with and what we're trying to do with this to continue to really grow and utilize these funds and have an impact on these community and surrounding communities.
So one of the things that we learned is the oil and gas here is one of our big industries, but it's also up and down often. So at being the business and industry sales coordinator, what I do is I go out, I start building relationships with the companies and learning about their needs. And we realized real quick that the SSB is a very simple application. Matt did a wonderful job on explaining everything, the details of the application, but it's very simple. So we go out, we listen to the customer's needs, and then we realized quickly too, talking about the courses, we were able to expand our courses. And the more that we go out and listen to what the company's needs are, we can actually come back and build even more courses. Because if they're needing it, other people are going to be needing it as well. And so we've actually been able to broaden our course offerings to the public. And so that's been very beneficial to the community as well as Odessa College. But we learned quickly that the SSB is a simple application, and Matt covered a lot of what we were going to talk about. We know it's for full-time employees. They have to have a W-2. They have to be meeting the prevailing wage. And one of the things that we've learned, TWC is an amazing partner to work with, because with the SSB, with Leslie and Shuba and Patricia and Marnie, they are excellent to work with through the details of it. So you send in the application, they're not meeting the prevailing wage, but they help you connect to see if they actually are putting down the right job title, because there's numerous times that the small businesses, they don't have the big job descriptions and the details that the larger companies might have. That's one way that they'll help us be able to see, do they have the right job title? We've had a couple of companies that they had the right job titles. They weren't meeting the prevailing wage. And so we actually work with the company and let them know, if you give them whatever the percentage is. I think some of them were like 20 or 30 cent raise. And so the employee actually will benefit from it, as well as the employer. And then it's a win-win all the way around for that part. So TWC works really well with you to make sure that it's all, they don't just say no, we work through a process with TWC on that part. Once the amount, or once the funds are approved, you have 90 days to start that class, whatever the class is, you have 90 days to be able to start it. And so we've learned through the process, one of our, again, TWC has taught us that if we have to change, because a lot of the oil field, they'll have hot jobs, and so then they'll cancel coming into the class, and so we'll have to reschedule it, but it has to be rescheduled within that 90 days. And so then that has been good. Then when you're working through the details of it, you receive a tip just like you do with the SDF. So if you're familiar with the SDF, you'll work, it's very, very similar, except for all the reporting is the same, except for you don't have to continue to keep up with the employee afterwards. You know, with the SDF, you have 90 days, I believe it is, that you follow the employee to make sure that they're still working at the company. And with this one, you don't. So you don't have quite as many details that you have to keep up with or to monitor. And so it makes it a very simple, and like Matt showed on that, his diagram, it's that simple. So we learned real quickly that it's beneficial to everybody. We actually have made simple processes or procedures in there. So our reg forms, we send them out a reg form that has everything on there for, because the questions are very similar to the SDF. So there's more questions that are on our regular reg form. So we have developed a reg form just for the SSB. And then once the class is finished, one thing that we've learned is that we've implemented checks and balances throughout that process. So you can draw down on those funds whenever, but we've learned what's best practice for us is that once the class is completed, we work closely with our accounting, and then we make sure that the students' accounts are clear, and we just have a checks and balance before we do any of it. Before we draw down, we make sure that the classes are completed. And if anybody has any questions, we'll be glad to go over all of it with you.
And I think one thing to know too, when Christy mentioned simplicity, it's simple, and I think that's real too, because when you visit these companies and you start to talk about the application, what's needed, sometimes it can frighten them. They're not really sure what they may be committing to or what they're filling out.
Yeah,
and when you set this workforce position, they're thinking the states, now the government's going to be watching them. But when we start to talk to them, give them a little more information and simplicity in what they need, then they're a little more open to that too. We'll get a little bit of that, not much, but once they've done it once, you've got them on the hook. And when I say that, I mean that they're eager to do more training. And I think what Matt mentioned earlier too, those dollars truly do go a long way. Those training dollars go to work with. They knew that timeline, that 12-month period, and they were coming back to us again after that 12 months, ready for another set of training too. So it's very much. Once you get them in, and once you get them in, they're very aware of it, very thankful, and you'll see them become repeat customers, and where you can really build and help them grow their company too. I think the other thing to mention too, because our service area is so large, and I said it, a lot of it's rural. A lot of it's rural communities as well. One of our challenges is how do we get the word out? We have some of our extension sites in some of these areas, not the vast majority. And so we started really teaming up with our media department on college, on the campus, saying how do we get this out? We started looking at radio and TV ads, so we scheduled those to get the word out. We had lots of different deliverables that we had printed out to send out to these rural communities and businesses. One of the things that Christy did with some of our communities is really set up informational sessions. We found that to be very beneficial too. Inviting these partners and companies to come in, we would sit down and talk to them about the SSB, and that proved to be very beneficial as well. Working with the chambers, that's been tremendous for us too. They have a lot of contact. A lot of small businesses go to the chamber. They want to be a member of that for multiple benefits, and one of those being through the SSB and getting that information to them. I mean, we work with our local workforce team as well. They are great. They're very helpful in making those connections too, because you'll start to learn, or many of you already know, it really is about building those relationships, networking and connecting. And so, and then when you do that with businesses, they too start to share that. And then we start to get calls too. So then it almost becomes where you're sitting back and people are calling you, hey, I've heard about this opportunity. What can we do? Our company is interested in those types of things. So we do a lot of those things, but I'm going to turn over. I'm going to let Christy talk about the one business that we started the training in one of the rural communities.
I got muted. So, hey, so yeah, the rural community, Fort Davis, actually, we have a company out there that we work with, and they actually take welding classes. It's a construction company, or construction, and so they are one of our very first ones that Lewis and I did here in CE. And so every year, Phil knows, and we start discussion, and as he puts on new employees, he knows to come in, and we automatically, we have a spreadsheet that we keep all of it, but anyway, we automatically know that it's time, and he knows that he can rely on us, and we just work it out. But I think we are actually running out of time. I don't know if we're going to open it up to any questions. Matt, I'll let you take back over, but we look forward to continuing to work with TWC and our partners, and we appreciate everything from you guys.
Awesome. Thank you for all that input. And I would like to hone in on something that Louise said, and it goes back to that graphic I showed you earlier, where that was just as simplified a version as you could possibly make it look, or the process look. But in reality, there's going to be so many other entities involved, and it really is a collaborative effort. You heard Luis talk about how involved they are, not only with the business community, but with their chambers and with their workforce solutions office, economic development group. So there's just so many partners at play here who obviously have a huge impact on that collaborative effort with this program. I also want to big kudos to Odessa College. They've really kind of created some niche programs out there for their very large service area. So I want to thank them for what they've done and what I know that they're going to continue to do for their small business community. And before we jump into questions, I'll leave you with one thought. Our Commissioner Julian Alvarez always says that one of the most profound things about our programs is that these programs will change the lives of people that you may never meet. Some people who participate in these courses, they're jobs, they're not jobs anymore. They are career paths, and their career paths are significantly altered for the better because of some of the training programs that we offer here at the Workforce Commission. So I think that is a profound feeling that, you know, there are some people participating in these courses who possibly have never set foot on a college campus before, or who have transitioned into a completely new job with a better wage and providing a better life for their family. So if you're ever down, I always like to think about that and really the extent and the impact that some of our programs offer. And my last thought, our old chairwoman and now Secretary of State Ruth Hughes used to have employers ask her, well, what if I train these folks and they leave my company? And she would respond, well, what if you don't train them and they stay? So I do want to highlight again that this program really does have a great impact, not only on increasing the efficiency of your business, but also increasing the efficiency of these specific employees and giving them a better opportunity to succeed through these trainings. So I really do think that there is a profound benefit to the program. And again, if you need any information or any assistance with an application, please reach out to myself and we'll get you in contact with the right people. Thank you. And Muriel, I'm going to open it up with you and we can answer any questions for myself, Luis, or Christy.
Perfect. And so we're running a little short on time, so I have a few questions. The first question is, if a training course is more than the 1,800 or 900, will that automatically disqualify someone from participating?
Really good question. I actually just answered this from Frank Phillips College right before we started the session. The answer is no, they're not disqualified, and we will fund a maximum amount. It is up to the so they're eligible for the $1,800, and then it's up to the business to cover the remaining $150.
Great. And then for Odessa College, are you seeing any trends with respect to training requests that you've seen, or is it kind of all like, does it run the gamut?
Yeah, it does run the gamut. It just depends. And so I was saying with the oil field in and out, we have a lot of welding, customer service, leadership, Excel, QuickBooks. It's more like that right now, but then we also have HVAC. So there's numerous, running a gamut.
Okay, great. And then another question with respect to the courses, since you did mention that there's some virtual training, does that mean that trainees of a business, they can take courses after hours, on the weekends? Are there any guidance? Is there any like rules around that?
So they can take them outside of normal work hours, but they will have to be paid while they are receiving the training. So that's more of a conversation that we like to have between the college and the business to kind of identify a schedule and a time frame that works for them.
Perfect. And then another question, do you allow for third-party training under Skills for Small Business?
So we do. It's a little tricky in the regard that third-party trainers, we don't want to have one-off third-party training. We like to have that third-party trainer almost have an established relationship. So they have to be considered an adjunct professor with the college, and then third-party training is allowed for that individual or for that person to provide third-party training. But we do require that relationship and rapport and that adjunct title of the third-party provider and the college.
Great. Right. And it looks like that we are out of time. So thank you, Matt, Christy, and Lewis. We really appreciate you providing this great information. And for our audience, please come back at 11:30 because we have a great presentation around self-sufficiency. It's Self-Sufficiency Fund, building and placing a skilled workforce through community-based partnerships. So please join us and enjoy your break. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending session 3, Self-Sufficiency Fund, building and placing a skilled workforce through community-based partnerships. My name is Reba Bacon. I am your host for the session and a statewide representative for the Self-Sufficiency Fund grant program. During this session, you will learn from community-based organizations on how they recruit and maintain trainees, manage their training funds, hear from business partners on how and why partnering with a community-based organization to hire skilled candidates is a cost savings and time savings benefit. But first, let's hear testimonies from recipients that have benefited from the Self-Sufficiency Training Fund. Thank you. Jennifer, is your mic on? Unmute.
My mic is not on.
There you go.
I'm going first. Hi, everyone. So my name is Jennifer Cobb, and I attended Skill Point August of last year, and I graduated from their pre-apprentice electrical class in September. That's that. But how I got started, my brother, he's a journeyman electrician, and he was just trying to get me to join what he believed was going to be like a family business. He does have his daughter in a apprenticeship, and I worked in an office previously. I was a receptionist for a doctor's office. And my brother was like, you got to study for this test, for the IBW. He's in a union state. And so I was sitting at my office job studying for this apprenticeship test that I really knew nothing about. When I got the call back to the office, they fired me. So I was let go. And I went immediately to this school that I didn't even know the name. I went to this school that my friend had attended, and I knew that he didn't have to pay for it. So I went there, and I was like, I'll take a few classes just to, while I'm unemployed. And I pull into the parking lot, and it says IBEW. And I'm like, this is not fake. I go inside. She gives me a number to call. I leave a message, and within 2 days, I get a call back, and they're like, we have an electrical class. And I'm like, okay, yes, I want to sign up. Within 2 weeks, I was in Alan's pre-apprentice class for electrical. I didn't know anything about tools. I didn't even hang pictures up in my house myself. Like, I didn't do any of the hands-on things. And within the month, I knew tools I had never seen before. I was just willing to learn and grasp this new field. And I took it seriously because Alan pushed that like it was serious. And once the jobs came in and just explained what they had to offer, it was like, okay, yes, this is real, and I can make a career out of it. 2 weeks after graduation, I was out in the construction field, applying all the knowledge that Alan had taught. And he didn't sugarcoat anything. What he said it was going to be, it was. And I took a pay cut to start this career in the electrical field. And a year later, I'm now making more than I was at my office job. Working 8 to 5, I would come home like exhausted. And I was sitting in a chair all day. I would come home exhausted. And like, I didn't feel like cooking dinner. I didn't feel like doing the laundry. I allowed it to pile up. And getting up at 4 in the morning, it's not like that. I definitely, I have learned to knock things out in the field, and I take the same attitude home. So when I get home at 3 and 3:30, I'm sitting up there. I'm cooking the dinner. I'm as the laundry's coming out, I'm taking it. I'm folding it. I'm putting it away. Just knock it out. And I've grown emotionally, physically. Like, I'm stronger. I'm stronger mentally, and it's all because of like the foundation that like Skill Point laid out there. And I wasn't surprised by anything, simply because I was given the how to and just what to expect. And I'm very, very, very grateful. My life has changed. I have 2 little boys who they're my little handymen around the house. They're seeing if they can use mommy's tools, and I don't think it's often that little boys can actually look up to their mother, but my boys do. that my youngest, he says all the time that he's an electrician, and he tries to just create things with the scrap wire that I actually had from Steel Point, and he'll flick on the light and he'll say, "Mom, I'm an electrician." And I think I've given them something to be proud of. And I mean, I wouldn't be mad if they followed into my steps of getting into this trade. And I mean, I could have been depressed that I had just been let go of my job. I could have been just sad about it. I could have there's just so many things that could have happened from me being let go, and that wasn't the case. Like I was a student. Like you all really gave me Skill Point gave me just a more purpose, and I'm highly grateful for it.
But thank you, Jennifer, for that wonderful testimony. I would like to move on, and I'm going to remind my recipients to remember you have 3 minutes. So greatly done, Jennifer. I greatly appreciate you coming and giving your testimony while you're still working. Have a great day and stay safe. Wear your mask.
I will.
Okay. We're going to move on with Roderick Brown. Are you connected, Roderick? Roderick?
I
we
think
can't hear
his
from Roderick.
phone is muted.
Is he muted?
Yeah, it look like he's muted.
Okay. We'll move on to Tri Anson. Are you able to speak, Tri?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Will you please share your brief testimony with us?
Oh yes, my name is Tri Anson. I started through the parenting center, but things didn't work out with that, and then that's how I was able to get through the self-sufficient program. But I don't think it was in place yet. But thank God that it was, because I wouldn't be able to start welding. I'm welding right now at Sabre, and it's been nothing but ups from there. Like before that, I was just working at staffing companies, like different staffing agencies, like just basic 90 days, not even 90 days, not really, not something I wasn't passionate about. And so I was just going from different staffing agencies trying to find something to provide for my daughter. She's 3. And once I was able to get approved for the self-sufficient program and took the welding school, it's been nothing but blessings coming my way. I've been able to do more for my family and just basically just completely changed my life. And at first I didn't even have benefits. I didn't have nothing to pass down to my daughter. I didn't have literally nothing financially, all that stuff. It just, once I finished the welding program last month, I was able to get a job in like 2 weeks, but I've had job offers that I've never wouldn't even gotten before welding program. Like it was crazy to me how easily it was just happening. And then Melinda and everybody up here at CLC was able to help me push more towards jobs that was benefiting me even more. And that's how I was able to choose a decision with Sabre. And I've been up there and I've been loving it ever since. It's something that I've never even done in my life. And it's just, I'm passionate. I wake up. I don't care if I'm working 14 hours. I still love it because it's something that's providing for my daughter, and I can just pass it on down to her. Everything I learned in school, I've literally taken right up there to Sabre, and it benefited me a lot. Even the projects I've done in school, I still got them in my cabinet at home because I admire it so much, because it's something that really changed my life.
Awesome. Thank you, Tri Anson. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of Jennifer as well. Roderick, you're connected. May we hear from you today?
Hello, how you doing?
Hello.
Sorry, I'm late.
That's
Out
okay.
on the work at first at some time. Yes, ma'am. How you doing? To everybody, it's a blessing to be here. I came to the lunch pad. I was in search of employment, and I was approached by Miss Young, who was the recruiter at the time. And I sure still a recruiter. I've been gone so long now. I enrolled in the program, the Houston Launchpad of Houston, Texas. The owner is Mr. Prince Goods. My teacher was Ms. Tiara Price. Wonderful teacher, wonderful teacher. She takes the time. She makes sure you got everything that you needed. The program was an 8-week program. I also brought my nephew in the class with me, and I encouraged him, highly encouraged him to complete it because he had been in and out of trouble. But I just try to be the light to someone's darkness at all times. And so therefore, Mr. Goods and Miss Price were actually the light to my darkness in my time of need, other than my Holy Spirit, which I choose to call God. I successfully completed the program, which was an 8-week program. Throughout the period of my 8-week program, 8 of those weeks, no, actually it was a 4-month program, and it was 8 of those weeks I had to do some on-the-job learning with the city of Houston, which is where I'm currently employed at right now. And upon my completion of the program, I got hired on as a temp as of November of 2019. And I successfully completed my temp services. And the city took me on, hired me on as a permanent as of June 29th of last year. So now I'm currently working as a City of Houston employee, which I love my job. This is like a dream come true to me. And as I stated in my City of Houston interview, I serve my country, in which I'm also a Navy veteran. So what privilege would it be to serve my city, which is the City of Houston? And I love the city because the city pays all my bills. And I still, from time to time, keep in touch with Mr. Goods. And I have a lot of people that support me. And now, this is like I stated, this is a dream job. So, I mean, what better way to go? And the lunch pad helped me get here. Because as a child, I grew up and I watched all of the city employees. I was like, wow, that's what I want to be one day, other than, join the military after I got out of the military. So, and I can't think of any better place to be right now.
Well, thank you, Roderick. A great testimony, all three of you. I'm so happy to hear of your great successes in the professional world, and I pray that you all continue to do and strive for the best. Thank you very much. Now we will move into our panel discussion. We have Mr. Prentice Goods, Director of the Houston Launchpad. We also have Aaron Hill with Skill Point Allowance, as well as Kevin Brackmeyer with Skill Point Allowance. And we have Thomas Palmer with CLC Incorporated. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining. We also have Philip Harris, and we also have Kelly Parker with the Ship Channel Constructions. Those are the business partners that are on the panel discussion today. I will start out by asking one question to the panelists. Mr. Goods, you can go first. What advice would you have for other grantees on how to successfully recruit trainees? I think he cannot hear. Mr. Goods? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I was speaking to Mr. Parker on the other line.
Okay. What advice would you give to other grantees on how to successfully recruit trainees?
Well, again, my name is Prentice Goods. I'm the program director of the Houston Launchpad. And one of the things that we were successful in, and how we recruited our participants was initially going to the local workforces, the AGCs, and building a partnership, a community partnership, and making our presence known there on a daily basis. We recruited diligently to let people know we had this program, and it was a great program for the community, and we built relationships with the staff at the different locations. We let them know every move that we had planned on doing. We gave them our timeline on what day the class was going to start. We predetermined what trades that we would be offering every 8 weeks. Also, they allowed us to have our graduations at their locations, which, you know, you had people that was in there looking for jobs, and they would see these people in the back clapping and enjoying themselves and being congratulated for doing the 8-week courses. So they started asking questions about, hey, what is it that y'all are doing? And some of them became interested in, attending the school and getting their certification. We just basically kept it straight to the point. When we go recruit, we don't try and, oversell the program or anything like that. We just tell them the truth. We have this 8-week course. If you have something that that will get you a job in a faster time than this 8 weeks, well, we commend you for that. But if you don't, give us a chance to give you to help you get 3 certifications, which is OSHA 10, NCCR core, and a particular trade. And a lot of them say, okay, but and another thing that we were able to tell them is that we had employers already on board that would interview them on their graduation date. And so they found that very rewarding. And so they gave us a chance. A lot of them say, well, we're just gonna give this a chance and see if this is really true or not. So having the infrastructure set up ahead of time, it helps. Having the community partners, that helps. Seeing employers come out and speak and interview everybody one-on-one, that helps. And, word of mouth kind of takes over from there. And I see Kelly just logged in. Welcome, Kelly.
Hello.
And that's what we kind of did. Kelly is an employer that we worked with for years, and we have a friendship beyond, the fact that he's an employee and we do the training. We always talking about the needs in the community, and he's always updating me on projects. And so I have this information to take to the students, and they like to hear that, and our employees, they come out and speak to the students while they in class to let them know, hey, you stand a chance to get on with our company if you do everything you need to do, during this classroom portion of the process. And a lot of employees found it impressive that a person was willing to train for 8 weeks and with no pay. They found that real impressive. They say, wow, if a person giving up that kind of time to get on, to go off into this type of field, that's a person we want to, at least interview and take it from there. So I commend, our community partners, Kelly Parker being one of the main, players in our process of getting these people trained and hired. And when we was putting this together, we figured that, we couldn't really compete with the community colleges or things like that. And people these days kind of want things done like in a microwave or yesterday. So we designed an 8-week program. We figured that was probably at the borderline of either keeping a person or losing a person. People that, they saying, hey, I got to go to work. And we thought that that would be just enough time to get them 3 certifications and opportunity to go to work. You know, like in Roger's case, the city of Houston, he's one of our successors, one of many. Matter of fact, you know, the city partnered with us. They are a community partner. But you know, that's some of the things, Miss Bacon, that we do to try and make sure our program is you know, effective.
Well, thank you, Mr. Goods, on that. I'm going to move forward with Aaron and Kevin. We really don't have that much time, but I want to try to get everyone in because I greatly appreciate you participating with us this morning. And I want to pass that same question to you and Kevin and Aaron. Just briefly give us a synopsis on what recommendations or what do you do to maintain those trainees, not only recruit them, but maintain them? Do you provide any incentives while they're in the training program to make sure, because as Mr. Goods pointed out, they're not receiving any type of pay. So what do you do to not only recruit them to your campus, but how do you keep them to stay for your whole training period?
Sure. And Reba, thank you for inviting SkillPoint. We really appreciate it. And good morning, everybody. My name is Aaron Hill. I'm the program director at SkillPoint Alliance. We're a small nonprofit in Austin, Texas that it sounds like provides very similar training programs to Houston Launchpad. We have short programs that are very rapid and concise. They're about 4 to 8 weeks long, and we provide specific certifications during the training. I don't have much to add beyond what Prentice said. He touched on a lot of really great things, community partnerships with the local workforce board, as well as other nonprofits and word of mouth. We have a strong presence whenever we can in community events. And then for Self-Sufficiency funds specifically, because of the target population being TANF recipients or households that have children, one thing that we've found successful is partnering with parents support centers at the local AI or at the ISDs in Austin and around it, as well as nonprofits that actually connect with parents who have children in their homes. That helps us in terms of also being a trusted partner. If we're partnering with one of those agencies that already has relationships with parents, that makes a really big difference than us just trying to market to a population that's already bombarded with opportunities.
It does.
Part of your question about incentives, similar to Prentice, we don't pay our students to take classes. We don't have stipends. It depends on some funding streams. Maybe we're able to, but very, very rarely. So that's why, similar to what he mentioned, we keep our programs very short. We do provide wraparound services, so connection to childcare, tools, and bus passes, and maybe food when we're in person if we're doing that. But otherwise, we don't provide a lot of incentives. We do, though, connect them to employer partners while they're in the program. And because our programs are so rapid, I think we have a really high success rate. About 90% or more of our students will graduate every year.
Thank you. Thomas Palmer, because CLC is in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, do you find difficulties with your trainees getting to your campus? And if so, how do you work with them to make sure that transportation is there for them to get to training as well? And then share any soft skills or essential skills training that you have incorporated into your curriculum.
Well, we, I guess one of the major barriers these guys face, of course, is transportation, getting back and forth to school. So we had to partner. We don't have any of that money to provide bus passes to the skills grant. So we partner with the other community partners that do have funds for the bus passes and for the gas cards and things like this to get back and forth to our training program. And as far as incentives, the major incentive that we hold out in front of them is, hey, you have opportunity here to get a skill that's going to get you a really good paying job. And they'll graduate our program. They'll test for the 1G welding certification or the entry level, the certification in machining and things like that. So they could, even though they have, only experience they would have would be in school. They will at least go to an employer. They'll have passed a welding test or passed a machining entry-level test. And that is the thing that we hold out in front of them to hopefully motivate them to complete the training and you know, to be there, be on time, and those are things that we try to build in our students, as well as the skill of welding or skill of machining or the computer skills. We try to build into them those skills that employers look for: timeliness, reliability. This.
Awesome. Thank you for that response. Kelly, would you like to share as well with Philip, if you're available, your mic on also? Can you please share from a business perspective how going to the work, partnering with the community-based organizations to fill your workforce, how has that benefited your organization? Kelly?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so we started working with Prentice in 2014. We're going on 7 years working with him. We went to Prentice when we got a visit from the Department of Labor, and they said that we needed to hire more minorities and women in the construction field. We reached out to several different community groups, and Prentice is the only one who responded of all the people that the Office of Civil Rights gave us the contact. And so we started out for Prentice to help us with the need, but down through the 7 years, it's been mutual in that we try to make all of his graduations, and we believe in 100% in what he does. He's right in that they persevere for the 8 weeks to get the training, and so that does mean a lot to us when we go. So we go to graduations and we interview. We stay late and we interview every person who wants to interview with us, and we hire quite a few of Prentice's people. The very first person who I hired through Prentice is now a foreman. He stuck with us there as a laborer, made all the way up to a foreman. And what we tell him, you make a foreman, you make good money, you get to drive a truck home, get a gas card, you get health insurance, really good health insurance. And so that guy, the very first guy I hired, still works with us, and he's a foreman. And so they can make it. Sometimes they need a little help. And so we try to provide that as much as possible, but it's been very beneficial to us. I know it's been beneficial to Prentice, but more importantly, it's been beneficial to the people who've gone through his program. They get a lot out of it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Philip, can you hear me? Okay. So in a few words, Kevin, can you share with us, if you had a choice to recommend any changes or revamp the program parameters with self-sufficiency, what would you like to see different or revamped to help the program succeed even further?
Thank you, Reba. It's really great to be here, and thanks for inviting us. I think if I had a choice, I would expand the definition of those who are at risk of poverty, and possibly modify the requirements that they are just parents. I know it's just that this is a TANF-funded program, but there are able-bodied adults without dependents that qualify for SNAP. So if I had my choice, I would change this so that able-bodied adults without dependents could also qualify for self-sufficiency. Right. In our experience as a training provider during COVID, we found it very difficult for parents to enroll and succeed in training, because a lot of parents have had to, to stay home and take care of their children. And even though we're able to offer the training to parents virtually, they just were not able to go to work. So that was a real struggle for them, specifically those who had children in the house and had to stay home with them.
Determining eligibility with those trainees, did any of you, meaning Thomas, Prentice, Aaron, Kevin, did you all experience any difficulties in trying to verify eligibility?
No major difficulties in verifying eligibility once, because we have a pretty lengthy process, onboarding process that our admissions team will take an applicant through from the point where they apply all the way through when they're first day in class. And so during that process, we're collecting documentation and verifying that to make sure that the documentation we've received matches the eligibility requirements in the contract. So I don't think we've had difficulty in that regard. We did have to pivot to touch lists and virtual document collecting, which meant that we had to get a little creative at times in terms of how we were taking pictures of documents. But in terms of actually verifying, fortunately, no, our process was set up so that we could verify pretty easily.
Thank you. Mr. Goods?
The same. I kind of can piggyback on what Aaron just said. We didn't really have any difficulty. Some students, we got their documentations once they started class, but they did follow through on making sure we got everything we needed for them to be eligible for, for the program and the training. Again, COVID has changed the playing field, and we're trying to do a lot of things virtual. So we emailing things back and forth, faxing documentations back and forth, and that's that's kind of where we at right now. Is just trying to make the adjustments to be as less, I guess, in the face of the individual as possible for right now. So, we just trying to figure new ways to move forward. But in the past, we had no problems.
Thomas? You're still muted.
Sorry about that. Yes, we collect the documents up front, picture ID, birth certificate, high school diploma, GED. Whether or not, if they're employed, we get a pay stub, but most of them are, of course, that we recruit are not employed. And the proof of child, either birth certificate of the child or some proof that they have a child, such as some type of school record or a medical record where they're listed as the responsible party, court documents. But we collect all that up front. And we found that if we don't get it up front, sometimes it's hard to chase them down later and get it. We've been fairly successful with that the few times that this has happened, but we pretty much require them to have those documents when they first enroll into our programs. So that's been our experience. We try to collect it before we provide them any services, because chasing it down later, with so much, you're so busy with everything that, you don't want to forget that, or it fall through the cracks or something like that. So we collect it up front.
So when you say you collected, do you have a person on your staff that specifically does your tracking of individuals, whether it be a case manager or what have you?
Yes, we have our case manager. We maintain a spreadsheet of all of our participants and their status, if we have their documents with their address and everything, all their information on the spreadsheet. And that is what we actually manage the people with, because we group them by cohorts, welding cohorts, machine cohorts, whatever the date they start, the date they end, their hours in the program, all of that. We keep up with all of that on a separate spreadsheet than the TIF. The TIF we basically use for reporting, and most of the information will come off of our spreadsheet where we tracked all the progress for the individual. That, because it's easier to manage by cohorts because of the dates and everything, and we can at a glance see where we're at in the process with the spreadsheet. Our case manager is responsible for getting the documents from the school. Now the school knows what documents they have to collect for someone who is planning on being funded by the SSF program. The school staff knows this. And so the director, the head lead of the school he makes sure that those documents are collected as well. But our case manager will be at orientation that they need for the individuals.
Thank you, Thomas. I see we were able to connect Philip. Philip, are you connected now?
We're having connection problems for some reason. We crashed a couple of times, and our employer doesn't have video, only audio. So they're only available audio.
Thank you. Abby, do we have any questions from the audience?
No, ma'am, we don't have any questions from the audience, although I do have a couple for you, just myself.
Great.
First one being, what support services have you found or have that are beneficial to helping participants gain employment?
Aaron, would you like to take that question? What support services have you found that has been beneficial with the trainees going through the program?
Yeah, it really does depend on the particular client. I hate using "it depends" as an answer. During the onboarding process, we have a lengthy intake form and several interviews where we'll try to ascertain what challenges or barriers might prevent that particular client from being successful. Because when we're accepting someone into a program, we're thinking already about that end step of employment and what resources do they need in order to be successful then, so we can start to problem solve those as early as the first interview with us. So I think in broad strokes, I'd say childcare support, sometimes food insecurity, so food resources and transportation are the primary barriers that we try to address. And then right under that, I would say also lack of tools and maybe equipment. So some of the industries that we train for do require that, you show up with boots and you have a conduit bender and you have other, your own tool set. So we also provide those or partner with our local workforce board in order to provide those services and resources.
And if I can add, we also have a student success coordinator that really coordinates all those services together and is laser focused on making sure that all of our students are connected to the right support services, whether it be the childcare or transportation or all the other things that Erin was sharing. So she also follows up with them after graduation and makes sure that they have everything that they need so that they'll be successful.
Great.
And with us, we helped them with acquire a driver's license. We found out that a lot of our students didn't have driver's license. They had IDs, Texas ID license, but ID, but they didn't have the driver's license, and a lot of employers started requiring that. So we made sure that they, if they had surcharges by us being a nonprofit, we would set up for community service to be done, and we would set that up through the court system so that they could get the surcharges taken off so they could get their driver's license. So things like that made a big difference in a lot of them feeling good about going into the program, because that was a major barrier that kind of discouraged them from day one. And so once we assured them that we would also assist in that area, they came on board and they were real supportive of doing what they needed to do in order for them to stand the best chance they could to get hired once they finished the training.
Thank you. Abby, any more questions?
Sure, just one more. Is it difficult to place participants with employment?
Who would like to take that?
I'll start. I think for us, I don't see it as there's a difficulty in placing our students. I think the secret sauce is the relationship that you have with employers. That is absolutely key in building those partnerships and relationships. And for SkillPoint, we have those relationships, and they've been built over the years and throughout the years. And so we bring our employers into our trainings. They mentor, they're a part of the training. They help design some of the trainings even. So I think for us, it's really a great partnership in such that when students graduate, in some cases they've been hired. We've had one employer and hire every single student out of a class. So building those relationships is super important. And so for us, it's a real easy transition. And nothing's easy, right? But it's a transition that we find that's been pretty successful.
Good, thank you.
We have some fantastic employers that we've built relationships with over the years that they give these guys a shot for initial employment, and they are really fantastic, and they I had somebody walk in my office distracted me. Sorry about that. Off my train of thought. People be coming in and out as I'm trying to go through the conference here. I need to have a sign. I'm in a conference. but our employees have been fantastic. And like Kevin said, our curriculum was designed with the input from the employers to give the employers the skill sets that they need for an entry-level employee. And that we built our whole educational curriculum around that. The employers and the skill sets that they need for entry-level employers. But these guys, a lot of these guys, they give the guys a chance. We probably half of our population are reentry guys. That's an easy population to recruit from. They get out of prison, they got a family they need to take care of. They don't have any job or job skills. Hey man, that's just low hanging fruit, for the program. And these employers have been so good to give these guys a chance. And some of those guys have made some of our best students. And our employers say that they've made some of their best workers.
Thank you. Thank you all panelists for participating today. This concludes our session. Please join us for our next session. It will be the JET program, FY21 updates and presentation, which is scheduled to begin at 12:30 p.m. Thank you again. And I hope you all continue to enjoy our conference. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, good afternoon. I see that it is 12:30, so we will go ahead and get started. Welcome to the last session of the day, the Jobs and Education for Texans, or the JET grant program. My name is Emily Lawley. I'm the Manager of Education and Workforce Development Outreach here in the Office of Employer Initiatives at TWC. And so wanted to go ahead and get started. Let me share my screen quickly. All right, well, we will begin with a brief overview of what the JET grant program is. This grant program provides those grants to eligible offers, those public, community, state, and technical colleges, and independent school districts to purchase and install equipment necessary for the development of those CTE courses or programs, leading to that license, certificate, or post-secondary degree in a high-demand occupation. And we rely on our local workforce development boards to help us to determine what those high demand occupations are. This program, the legislature moved this program over to the Texas Workforce Commission in 2015, and that is when they added independent school districts as eligible offers. So wanted to start off with, and next slide says FY21, what's next? I would actually like to go ahead and start with a little bit of an FY20 recap. This was our first year that we had an increase in funding available. Last legislative session, thanks to our three commissioners, the #1 legislative appropriations request was additional funding for the JET grant program. So instead of the $10 million for the biennium that we've had in the past, we now have $16 million per biennium, $8 million per fiscal year. And FY20 was the first fiscal year that we had this additional funding. And so last year, we had 41 grants awarded, 29 grants to ISDs and 12 grants to IHEs. And I will say, out of those 41 grants, our institutes of higher education were a part of all 41 grants, because per statute, ISDs must be in partnership with their local community, public community, state, or technical college. And as with every single program that has been discussed today, there are many folks and many teams behind these programs that work so hard to make this program successful. So wanted to thank Carol and our RFA grants team, Christina and our contracts team, Mike with our LMCI team, helping with all of that data, as well as our OEI outreach team to help spread the word, Matt Snydecki and all of our SDF regional folks that help us to make sure that everyone knows about this wonderful, wonderful program. So this brings us up to FY21. So again, as I mentioned, $8 million is available. And I know the first question on everyone's mind right now is, when is that RFA coming out? Well, I do not have a tentative date for that RFA, but I do have some good news. Some of you might already be on this distribution list, but there is a way to sign up for RFA notifications, meaning the moment that that RFA is issued, you've got an email in your inbox with a link taking you directly there. So I know there's a bunch of hyperlinks in this verbiage on the screen. I'm going to have our email addresses up on the screen here in a little bit. Feel free to shoot us an email and we can send this verbiage to you so you have those hyperlinks available. Just wanted to make sure you're aware, this will give you notifications for all the RFAs out of TWC, not just JET, but it's a great way to make sure that you're aware of when that RFA does come out. And so the JET Advisory Board, there was a legislatively mandated JET Advisory Board, 6-member advisory board, and they met on November 19th of this year, just a few weeks ago, and established 5 recommendations to the commission regarding the FY21 program parameters. And our commission approved these recommendations actually just a couple of days ago. So hot off the press, but would like to update you on these FY21 program parameters. So for funding allocation, for the $8 million available in general revenue this year, 40% of that is available for the IHEs and 60% is available for ISDs. Again, would like to reiterate, IHEs are a part of 100% of the JET grants. A maximum grant amount, minimum amount is set at $40,000. Maximum amount is set at $350,000. The next item is regarding a section of the program evaluation regarding previous JET program funded grant awards received by applicant. So this is points that are based off of the number of past JET grants you have received in the past. So if you've never received a JET grant in the past, you would receive the maximum amount of points for this section. And so for the IHEs, now only taking into consideration those grants which have been awarded under TWC. The program, most of you probably are aware, program originated back over at the Comptroller's office. So it's now only counting the grants that have been awarded under TWC since the program has moved over to TWC in 2015. Next item, budget workbook scoring. So this section is now allowing staff to assign point deductions to the overall score based off that budget workbook scoring. And the last item is point threshold. So the point threshold has been reduced the point threshold from a minimum point threshold of 60 points down to a minimum point threshold of 50 points. So those are 5 of the FY21 program parameter updates. Here is a contact us page. So as many of you know, or as you know, JET is handled through an RFA process. It's a competitive grant application. And so questions regarding the RFA must be answered by the RFA grants team, by Carol Hunt Moses and her wonderful team that works so hard to make this RFA successful. So that's why I put up the RFA grants email address up on the screen. However, my email address is up there as well as Matt Snydecki. If you have questions, if you're wanting to know that RFA notification verbiage and links, please shoot us an email. Please, feel free to take a screenshot to make sure that you have our contact information available to you. And so with that, this next section that we are going turning over to is in regards to outreach. This has been, as an outreach team, it is so important for us to get the word out across the state about this wonderful, wonderful program. And so today we're going to highlight 2 examples of how institutions are continuing to outreach to ISDs and how they've been very creative in what they've been doing. And they're going to highlight what they've been doing and the results that they've seen and kind of in their communities. But would also like to say everyone here today has a role to play to help with this effort. You know, we have seen several examples across the state of all different types of institutions, whether that be local chambers, economic development corporations, education service centers, you know, all of these different types of groups promoting the JET grant program to their region, having workshops, having opportunities to come and share the successes of this program, what this program does, how it can change and affect your community and your future workforce. And so I'm excited. I have two speakers here today. I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Virginia Champion. She is the Executive Director for Resource Development, Management, and Compliance at South Texas College. She has 29 years of experience in education and has worked in both K through 12 and in post-secondary education. Dr. Champion has led teams engaged in the successful development of fundable proposals, managed grant programs, and served on performance monitoring support teams, and has trained and assisted individuals and institutions of higher ed with identification and acquisition of federal, state, and foundation grants. And so with that, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Champion to share her presentation and her remarks.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you very much, Emily, for that great warm introduction and for your overview of the JET program. We definitely appreciate everything that you do, that you have done over the years to support us with JET and all of the support that we get from TWC. I'm going to show the full screen here, so you should all be able to see this. If you could, yeah, you're nodding. Great, thank you. So what we're going to talk about is a JET networking meeting that started about 4 years ago, and it's definitely evolved. When we started doing this JET networking, we invited ISDs, and then we over time just decided we needed to expand it further to invite TWC's JET manager, Emily, and to invite our workforce partners. So staff from Workforce Solution also now come, and we all present together. This is important because, as Emily mentioned, even if an ISD is applying for JET funding, an IHE has to be involved as a partner. What you're looking at here is the language that's from the latest RFA that came out from the Texas Workforce Commission that shows that an applicant can be a Texas independent school district that has entered into a partnership with a public junior college like ours, a public junior college like South Texas College. And so when we know that our ISDs have the opportunity to apply for funding, but they could be naming South Texas College in their applications, it's very important that we collaborate. And so what we created was this opportunity for school district and college personnel to network and collaborate and plan effectively for the development of fundable JET proposals in advance. So when we come together, we are coming together to discuss what type of program they're interested in. If they're not yet decided as to what type of CTE program they want to focus on for their JET proposal, we let them know what type of CTE programs the college offers. We verify that there's already an arrangement in place between the college and between their ISD for a dual credit program. And you know, one of the new things that we are now able to inform them about is that they can even get bonus points when they do their application. If they have a letter of agreement that they submit with that application that has the authorized representative signature from South Texas College, which is our college president, it's now written into the RFA that it is part of eligibility, and it's part, you know, to have that partnership and this letter of agreement can qualify them for bonus points. So when we come together, this is what our first announcement to them looks like, and we invite them to come. We do an email blast. I personally will make some phone calls out to ISDs just to make sure that administrators have gotten the information. We invite high school principals, we invite district CTE directors. If the the district has a grant development office, we invite their grant development staff. We inform the superintendent's offices that this is an opportunity coming up, and it's important for them to consider. Ultimately, when school districts apply for JET grant, the students that are being served in a dual credit program for STC, for South Texas College, these are our students, and this is one community that we serve. And we have common goals in mind when we're serving these students. And we know that when they're taking courses, if they have access to state-of-the-art equipment that is going to support those students' development of skills and their knowledge building that leads toward a license, certificate, or post-secondary degree, eventually it's going to lead to a high-demand job. And that benefits all of us involved. And so we communicate that to them when, we communicate even just, from the beginning with this flyer that goes out to them. This is last year's flyer. As you can see, this was announcing the September 4th, 2019 networking training. We let them know a little bit about what JET is about in case they're a school district administrator that's never seen it. They don't know what this grant is about. They've never applied. But of course, now we have several districts who do know what JET is. In the beginning, when we started doing this, a lot of them were new to it. They really didn't know what JET was. And so we had many people walking in the door not really knowing what the networking was all about. And once they learned about it, what we found is that they started working more closely with our department. The department I lead is the Department of Resource Development, Management, and Compliance, but also with the CTE program chairs and the deans from our institution. In some cases, they didn't know what programs we had in place and what we didn't. So some of them were thinking of applying for a program that we didn't even offer, so it was very helpful, I think, for many of them that were new to applying for JET and, to understanding, what we meant by the importance of partnership. And so when we do the training, I start and train them on what is networking, and that it doesn't really just begin and end with JET, but that's a good springboard. But really what we want to get to is synergy, where throughout the year and all the time, we're thinking about how we can collaborate with one another. And we've established stronger relationships, as evidenced by just merely the sharing of grant opportunities between ISDs and South Texas College. I get calls, they will get emails from me, phone calls, and, so it's really opened up the door to a lot more, coordination and collaboration between all of us. And we talk about how important it is for us to consider whether it's, us, the college, or ISDs, considering the impact that grants have on both of our institutions. When we develop a proposal or an application and it's submitted and it has the name of that other entity on it. And so when we say partnership, we really mean that people are working together, they're making decisions together that are mutually beneficial for, the students that we serve, for the institutions that we represent. And what I'm showing you here is just kind of an overview of our agenda. This isn't the actual more detailed agenda that they get, but I would be happy as a follow-up to this session to provide anybody who's interested with the full PowerPoint presentation that we use, or that we used last year as an example more in depth of, what it is that they get. Um, as you can see, we had last year Emily Clodfelter, who is now Lolly, present, and at that time as a JET program manager from the Texas Workforce Commission. And she came in and gave an outstanding presentation, which always gets everybody's attention when they see that TWC is on the agenda. And so they all show up excited to see, and hear what is going to be shared. So she shared funding information. She talked about the importance of partnership and the requirement that is there in the RFA for ISDs when they are applying. And then we also had our local workforce solutions office come in and present. We had our community engagement deputy director, business intelligence specialist, and education relations supervisor. And their major focus was in talking about the data and access to data that would be helpful to applicants in determining which programs would make sense and what the job market looks like in those occupations. And then in the RFA for the JET program, there is a requirement that a high demand occupation form be submitted together with the application, and that form has to be signed by the local workforce board. So they go over that and they talk about their process, for receiving that from ISDs and, reviewing it and getting the signature on it and back to them for their application. And then in our department, one of our grant development officers, Noemi Marroquin, has taken the lead and been very instrumental in developing the presentation on the JET application itself. So what we do is we go back to the latest version of the RFA that we have from the Texas Workforce Commission, because we have to keep in mind that when we do this JET networking, we're doing it before that fiscal year's application has posted, so that we can invite TWC to come in and present. Because if you haven't heard this yet, once the RFA is out, they're mum on the JET program. So before the RFA posts, that's our opportunity to be able to bring them in so they can speak, about the program, about the, funding information for that year. And so then the other part of the presentation that is provided by our grant development officer is on the internal review process that we have in place. Because we do have our grant department, we have a technical review process for all applications that come into our office that involve STC in any way, or that are applications that STC is submitting, directly as the lead applicant. And everything is reviewed not only by our grant development officer, but also by myself as the administrator for the department. And our department happens to be within the office of the president. So they're reviewed very carefully, keeping in mind that the next review is going to be by the college president to authorize the submission of the application that, in the case of an ISD application, names STC as a partner. So we do review very, very carefully. And then lastly on our agenda, and probably one of the most important parts, is the networking, where they're able to move to small groups and they focus on the specific CTE program that they're interested in or that they're considering for their JET application. And this is where, district administrators are together with STC deans and CTE program chairs, and they start planning. And we tell them that, even if they haven't finished making a decision on which program, to just come back to us and communicate, what their decision is, so that we can make sure that we get them connected to the right program, to the CTE program chair, so that they can more in depth discuss the course sequence and the ideal equipment that they would want to include in their JET program application. So in our presentation last year, we provided them with our, funding information on JET from fiscal year 19, we were awarded, and we also had 4 districts awarded in our region in fiscal year 19, which, over the years, we've seen the numbers of awards to South Texas have climbed. We think that a part of that is because we do the JET networking. And, because I think everybody recognizes that regardless of whether it's the college or ISDs that are getting a JET grant, these are our students that are going to benefit from learning about these programs. As you can see in fiscal year 20, it was 5 school districts that were awarded in our region, and we have 3 that are implementing welding programs, and 2 that are implementing automotive service technician and mechanic programs, and all of them receiving a significant amount of funding for equipment that is needed for them to run those programs. So when we network with them, as you can see, we have this process in place, and I really want to tell you, it's helped us so much. In the very beginning, I've been at the college now 5 years, and in the beginning, when JET opened up for ISDs to apply, it was an eye opener for us, because the deadline is one and the same as it is for your institution of higher education application. So of course we were working on our JET application, but that year districts were working on their applications, and all within about 7 business days, we had about 4, 5, 6, I don't remember exactly the number, but there were several applications from ISDs that informed us that they were applying, and we were working on ours and getting it ready for submission. And so it was a lot coming in a very short period of time. And so very quickly, a decision between myself and the president was made that we would offer this JET networking meeting. And I have to tell you honestly, I mean, for me, it was very natural to think about bringing these people, together, because I had come from a regional education service center. I had worked with administrators across the school districts across the South Texas region, from Brownsville and Laredo, for many, many years. And because that was my experience, it was just natural, for me to bring them together. And it felt good, to see them come into South Texas College and to be able to continue to work together and, support one another in meeting the common goals and objectives that we have that relate to, continuing to expand opportunities, education opportunities for our students to work together toward better, economic development through the training programs that are offered, so that eventually, these individuals complete and go on into occupations that are available in our region. And so what we ask them to do is just, work really very closely with us when it comes to the JET program. So they start by contacting RDMC, stands for Resource Development Management and Compliance. And then we help to make sure that they're connected to our dual credit program and to the CTE program chair. So what happens there is that, dual credit will verify that they already have an arrangement in place and that they have the dual credit instructors that they need for the program that they're looking for, or they work with them to make arrangements if they don't yet have that in place. And with the CTE program chair, once they know which school district is interested in, applying for JET equipment, for their particular program, they'll look at, well, what is the ideal equipment for that district to include in their budget, and they review the course sequence as well to make sure that it's one that makes sense and will feed, directly into the offerings that the college has. And then when their application is a complete draft, that's when our grant development officer receives it. And when I say that our staff do a technical review, what I mean by that is that they look specifically at how the grant application is going to be evaluated. And all of that information is posted by the Texas Workforce Commission every year when they announce the grant. And so we base it on exactly verbatim what it says. And when we review it in comparison to that evaluation criteria, and then provide them with feedback, with sometimes suggested revisions or just considerations for the ISD. It is their application. But since we're named as a partner, we want to help them if we can, and as much as we can, to write a fundable proposal. And we know that for a proposal to be fundable, it needs to respond to what the funding agency, in this case, the Texas Workforce Commission, is looking for. So after that's done and the application is ready to move forward, then it comes to me and I do a similar type of review before it's approved to move forward to our college president for signature authorization as the IHE partner. So it's really worked for us very well. And I know that, you know, Emily has been very supportive of this, and I know she's shared with other institutions from the calls that I've gotten in the past, you know, from others interested in finding out more about how we do this. I'd be happy to share more with any of you if you'd like, but that is the end of our presentation for now. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you, Dr. Champion. And just to make an announcement, due to the RFA process, we unfortunately are not going to open it up for Q&A. As I mentioned before, questions have to be sent to the RFA grants team. So I'll make sure to share that email address again before the end of the session. So with that, I would like to turn it over to our next presenter. Danielle Davis is the Partnership Development Coordinator with Workforce Solutions for North Central Texas. Danielle has been with Workforce Solutions for North Central for just over 2 years. Her role as Partnership Development Coordinator was created to deepen the connections between Workforce Solutions North Central and K-12 leaders in those community technical colleges, and share opportunities to help strengthen our future workforce. So with that, I will turn it over to.
Thanks so much, Emily. I'm very happy to be here, and it is an honor to share some of the work that I've been doing in the short time that I've been with Workforce Solutions for North Central Texas. So as Emily was saying, I'm the Partnership Development Coordinator, and this is a relatively new role, really hoping to build cross-agency partnerships, engage those K-12 and college partners, and promote that shared vision with the success of our future workforce. So in the summer of 2019, we started a pilot of the JET workshops. So the JET grant workshops, you know, it stemmed out of recognizing what a great opportunity the JET grant offers students in the region, able to strengthen their skills needed to enter the workforce, and strengthens those partnerships between ISDs and colleges. So as I was pretty new, I had a lot to learn. So we really started looking at the parameters of the RFAs, the history of the program, and with that, some targeted outreach for these workshops. So we were really looking at the 102 ISDs in our region and focusing on the ones that best fit the criteria that we were recognizing in the application. We were looking at previous awards and really finding some of those similarities that we were catching and seeing, and finding folks that would best suit this application. So it started out as a pretty soft rollout, with very targeted outreach. So the workshops themselves, last summer, of course, we wanted to think about the size of our region. We are the 14 counties that surround Dallas and Tarrant County. So we wanted to make sure that we were choosing locations that were pretty easy for folks to get to if they were traveling to the workshops. This was back when we did things in person, you know. So we looked at both Weatherford College and Terrell ISD, who were both recent recipients of the grant. And we also wanted to consider the timing as well as the location, because as Dr. Champion was talking about, we knew that we only had Emily for the short window before the RFA was dropped before she would go radio silent. So we made sure that the timing worked out. And we kicked off both the Terrell ISD workshop and the Weatherford College workshop with Emily. And she was able to bring her enthusiasm, her expertise, talk about the history of the grant, funding information and criteria. So we were so appreciative of her, and that, you know, a lot of what I say is going to echo Dr. Champion as far as the excitement that generates within the partners that were attending. They saw that TWC would be there, and that's such a great opportunity for them to ask those questions. So Emily would kick us off. We also saw that as an opportunity for Workforce Solutions to be able to get to know the partners that were attending the workshop. Many of them may not be familiar with our role in the grant, not only providing the high demand occupations, but also wanted to support them with additional labor market information they need, the data they need, and also the technical assistance that I can bring to the process. Once TWC goes silent, they may have additional questions that I might have an answer to. So I'm happy to support them if I'm able to in that way. And what was also great about Terrell ISD and Weatherford College and their support through these workshops is that since they were recent recipients, they're able to give some tips and advice and talk about their experience going through the program. They were also able to showcase how the program has strengthened their programs. And Terrell ISD actually had students present, and that was a surprise to me, but students were actually at the workshop, and they guided educators and the attendees through their areas, showing off the equipment, talking about what they've learned, and their plans for the future. So, you know, it kind of tugs at your heartstrings to actually hearing directly from those students who have benefited from the JET program. And so we are just very grateful for those of you, TWC, Terrell and Weatherford, for volunteering that time, volunteering the space. It made a big difference for the workshops. It was great to work closely with them in the planning of it. So that was just a really great opportunity for me, especially being new to workforce and learning more about the schools that we work with. All right, so once the grant was released after these workshops, we did see a higher turnout of applications within our area. As Emily was talking about, the RFA, once that is posted and you get that alert, I was on high alert watching for that so that I could send an additional outreach like, hey, here it is, get ready. All the planning we've been doing, it's go time. So, you know, once that started happening, the phone calls started coming in, emails started coming in, which was really great that people remembered like, hey, you're here to support me. Well, here we go. So with those board confirmation forms, that process actually starts with me at the office. So as Dr. Champion was also saying, it's another opportunity to get another set of eyes on those application narratives. I was kind of looking through them. If I saw typos or if I felt like maybe there was some information missing, I would just make a gentle suggestion, you know, just out of courtesy, like, hey, have you thought about this? Or this is what I saw, so that they could maybe revise if they chose to. And with that, we were able to actually approve every application that came through our board office. We had 10 applications out of our region. 6 of those applicants participated in the workshops or received information directly from those workshops. So there were a few folks who weren't able to attend in person, but they requested follow-up meetings with me, where I was able to actually share Emily's presentation with them and go over some of the questions and answers that came out of the workshops. And each of those follow-up meetings, those schools ended up applying and submitting applications. And out of those 10 applications, we are very proud to say that 4 of them were awarded. And I would like to just take a moment to recognize and congratulate those folks. So that was Rockwall ISD, and they had a partnership with Collin College, Cleburne ISD, who had a partnership with Hill College, Bowles ISD, who partnered with Paris Junior College, and Community ISD in their partnership with Trinity Valley Community College. So congratulations to you all. If you're on the call, super job. And, you know, we felt that this was all a great success. We do want to continue doing these JET grant workshops. I may be knocking on Dr. Champion's door because I thought some of what she covered was a really great thing to start implementing into what we're doing and growing. We have most recently that we kind of had to change it into that virtual environment. So both Emily and Matt Snidecki joined us for a virtual workshop in September, where we did our best to kind of recreate that experience. Rockwall ISD joined us for that as well, to discuss their process through submitting an application. And, you know, hopefully we'll see some more success moving forward in terms of numbers of applications coming through, and how we as a workforce board can help and partner for greater success. So that was kind of a quick run through of everything that we've been working on, but we do anticipate that it will continue to grow and change along with everything else that we've been rolling with. So, all right, well, thank you so much. And if you will have any questions, I'll drop my email address in the chat. So I'm here for any of those thoughts or questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Danielle. I was actually just going to ask you to drop your email into the chat. Dr. Champion, if you wouldn't mind doing that as well. I'm sure folks definitely would like to follow up with both of y'all. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon, going over the wonderful events and outreach opportunities that y'all have had for your region. As I mentioned, here are 2 examples, but there have been several examples of these wonderful, wonderful opportunities across the state, with the colleges, with the ISDs, with the boards. Again, ESCs, those education service centers, have also been a phenomenal resource for the ISDs and their economic development corporations and chambers. So thank you all for your efforts to make this program what it is today. So I would like to also, as I mentioned, I'm going to reshare the contact info. I've also put up the JET website link. They're the texasworkforce.org/JET. So, you know, the grants that Dr. Champion and Danielle mentioned, you know, you can find more information, the list of past JET grants to see, you know, the occupations they applied under and those grant amounts. So that list of past JET grants is available on the JET website, along with additional information about the JET Advisory Board and all of those wonderful things. So if you have any questions, please send them to, you can send them to Matt, myself, the RFA grants team. We'll make sure to get them to the right place. I would also just like to, again, thank Dr. Champion and Danielle for being here today. And then with that, thank you for joining us on day 1 for our OEI virtual conference. Please be sure to join us tomorrow at 9 a.m. for another wonderful set of panel discussions about more of our amazing programs here at the Texas Workforce Commission and those wonderful resources for economic development and education. You need to, day 2 does have a separate registration link for the access. So if you have questions about any of that, please reach out, but please make sure to use your day 2 registration link to access the event tomorrow. So with that, I hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon, and we look forward to seeing everyone again tomorrow morning. Thanks, everyone.